Chapter 4679. Moo. After today's battle, the Green Rainbow Starfield is destined to be completely destroyed, just like the headquarters of the Blood Dragon clan. However, I will only kill the culprit today. In the void of the universe, Green Ox raised his head and roared. The voice of his divine sense instantly spread out and swept toward the Qinghong Galaxy in front of him. Everyone in the Qinghong Galaxy, listen up. If you are below the level of Venerable, as long as you surrender, you will not be implicated. Those who refuse to realize their mistakes and resist stubbornly will be killed without mercy. Those who give up and surrender, turn off the engine of the battleship. All personnel will leave the battleship and form an array in the void space on the right side of the battleship, waiting to be recruited. Those who refuse to listen to the order and act rashly will be killed immediately. Hung, long. As soon as the voice of his divine sense fell, an earth-shattering rumble came from the Cyan Rainbow Star region 20 million kilometers away. How dare a mere titled emperor behave so atrociously in the Green Rainbow Starfield where I am guarding? Green Bull, have you eaten the heart of a bear or the heart of a leopard? Along with the roar, a huge figure quickly appeared in the depths of the Green Rainbow Starfield. A moment ago it was still hundreds of millions of miles away, but in the blink of an eye, it was already at the edge of the starfield. It was a green rock. At this time, it had already revealed its bloodline true body. Its wingspan was 30 million feet, and with a flap of its wings, it was tens of millions of miles away. Its speed was absolutely astonishing. Even great beings of the other races of the same level were no match for it. As for his cultivation level, he had already reached the Fourth Order universe supremacy. Although he had just stepped into the middle stage of this realm, this level of cultivation was an existence that was absolutely impossible to surpass for the three great armies of the Demon Palace who were courting death by provoking them. Among the three great legions of the Magic Hall, the strongest one, the six-headed Blood Dragon, was only at the first level of Universe Supreme and had just entered the initial stage of this level. If they were to fight this green rock head-on, they would most likely be killed within a few breaths of time. There was no suspense at all. This was obvious to everyone. Hence, at this moment, as this green rock appeared, a large number of great beings and battleships of the green rock race came rumbling from behind and sailed toward the edge of the starfield. The scouts of various forces, ferocious beasts, and survivors who were watching from a distance in the void in the distance immediately sighed. Some of them could vaguely hear through their divine senses. Green Rock Supreme has never shown himself before, and the outside world has only heard rumors of his cultivation level. Today, I see that he has indeed reached the fourth level of the Universe Supreme. That's a powerful middle-stage Supreme being. The Master of the Magic Hall is truly muddle-headed. I'm afraid that the three legions of the Magic Hall will be completely wiped out in today's battle. What do you mean by afraid? This is clearly a done deal, and there's no suspense at all. Perhaps in a fit of rage, the Azure Rock Sovereign and the Battle Lion Clan's Battle Lion Sovereign would charge into the Forbidden Land of Rising Sun and kill the Master of the Magic Hall in one fell swoop. Indeed, there's such a possibility. Previously, the Green Rock Race and the Battle Lion Clan didn't make any moves only because the Supreme Ancestor in their base camp was still in seclusion. But now, the Green Rock Sovereign of the Green Rock Race has already come out of seclusion. If the Battle Lion Clan's Battle Lion Sovereign is the same, the two of them will definitely join forces and charge into the Forbidden Land of Rising Sun. Is a fourth-level Universe Supreme very powerful? As the discussions in the distant void sounded faintly, Green Ox, Six-Headed Blood Dragon, Zhao Dong and Qian Nan, who were at the forefront of the three legions of the Magic Hall, the strongest of the six-headed Blood Dragon, dashed forward. At this moment, his voice rang out, spreading close to 10 billion miles of void space and was heard by all the great beings who were hibernating in the distance. The aura emanating from your body is somewhat unstable. This is clearly a sign that you've just made a breakthrough. And it seems that you're in a hurry to come out of seclusion. Green Rock, you've just forcefully broken through, and it's likely that you've already caused a backlash in your body. Now, instead of going into seclusion to consolidate your realm and eliminate the hidden dangers, you actually dare to fight with me. In my opinion, in your current state, as long as the power in your body is slightly agitated, the backlash will most likely come immediately. At that time, your cultivation will plummet, and you won't be able to avoid it. At this point, Six-Headed Blood Dragon curled his lips and waved his right claw. With a look of disdain, he continued, "Scram back into seclusion. If you're defeated by me in this state, it'll be an unfair victory. It'll be a disgrace." Screech. Bull*T. Just as Six-Headed Blood Dragon finished speaking, an earth-shattering roar came from the edge of the cyan rainbow star field ahead. Green Rock Sovereign had indeed just made a breakthrough. Previously, it was rumored that he had been a 4th-level Supreme for a long time. In fact, it was slightly exaggerated. His true cultivation was only at 3rd-level Universe Supreme, which was the peak of the initial stage of this realm. The reason why he had gone into seclusion previously was to make a breakthrough. For this, he had been preparing for many years. Now, although he had just come out of seclusion, he had successfully broken through to 4th-level Universe Supreme. He was a genuine middle-level Supreme, and his cultivation base had long been consolidated. It was not like what Six-Headed Blood Dragon had said, that his realm was unstable. This guy was simply slandering him. A mere 1st-level Supreme dared to provoke and ridicule him like this. This made Green Rock Sovereign, who was a 4th-level Supreme being, fly into a rage, screech. "You damned blood flood dragon! This sovereign must tear apart your bones and skin you alive today to vent the hatred in my heart." Green Rock Sovereign raised his head and roared again. His gigantic body suddenly turned into a beam of green light and shot out from the edge of the cyan rainbow forbidden land in front of him. Gotcha! Gotcha! However, at this moment, a crisp cracking sound suddenly came from his gigantic body without any warning. It was incomparably clear. Even the scouts from the various races and forces who were watching from afar in the void hundreds of millions of miles away heard it. The great beings also heard it clearly. This was clearly the sound of bones shattering. Pooh! Just as everyone was shocked and uncertain, Green Rock Sovereign's figure, which was originally shooting over at an extremely fast speed, came to an abrupt halt in the void at this moment. He opened his mouth and spat out an arrow of blood. It was like a heavy rain, sprinkling down in the void. His huge wings, which were originally stretched out, suddenly drooped down weakly as the blood arrow spurted out. It was as if his wings had been broken. In the blink of an eye, Green Rock Sovereign fell into a dispirited state. The cultivation aura emanating from his body had dropped by a few levels, and he had already fallen to the 1st-level Universe Supreme level. He was even weaker than Six-Headed Blood Dragon. See, I was right, wasn't I? In your current state, your realm is unstable. If you force yourself to attack, even your wings will be broken. Why bother? Chapter 4680. Shio. In the void, an incomparably sharp sound pierced through the air. The Six-Headed Blood Dragon, who had made up his mind, turned into a ray of bloody light and shot forward. In the blink of an eye, he had already arrived in front of Yi Xian. His body came to an abrupt halt, and his state instantly weakened. His cultivation level dropped to 1st Supreme. The 2nd stage Azure Rock Prime was approaching. There was naturally a reason for such an unexpected turn of events. All of this was done secretly by Yi Xian. The current Yi Xian, in his 9th transformation state, was already at the 2nd stage of the primordial sovereign realm, even if he ignored the fact that the boundless blood and chi energy within his enormous body had increased his cultivation by 10%. It was naturally not difficult to injure a Universe Supreme in secret. It was no exaggeration to say that it was no more difficult than stretching out a finger and crushing an ant to death. In fact, Yi Xian's original body was not here at all. He was still in the magic hall of the Rising Sun Forbidden Zone's cavern star. Even though he was so far away in the starry sky, Yi Xian could easily do all this. Of course, if there was a powerful primordial supreme here, even a late-stage primordial supreme would be able to more or less see something fishy. Unfortunately, the strongest existence in the starfield was only the Azure Rock Sovereign. Even he himself did not understand why he had suddenly lost his wings and his cultivation had plummeted. As for the others, they naturally did not understand. It was impossible for them to see any clues, however. The Six-Headed Blood Dragon, Green Ox, Zhao Dong, Qian Nan, Sun Shi, and Li Bei were naturally well aware of it, but they would not point out the truth. The Six-Headed Blood Dragon had deliberately slandered Azure Rock Prime because he had just broken through and his cultivation level was not stable. In fact, he had a motive. Logically speaking, he was only a First-Order Supreme. Obviously, it was impossible for him to be Azure Rock Prime's opponent. He was not the only one who knew this. The Demon Master was also well aware of this. Therefore, the Six-Headed Blood Dragon was sure that Yi Xian would definitely make a move, and he would do it secretly. The reason he said such words earlier was to give Yi Xian a reason to secretly make a move. Otherwise, if the old lion in the War Lion race's base camp, who was also at the middle stage of the Universe Sovereign Realm, realized that something was amiss, he would have immediately fled far away. Even if he went to the War Lion Race's base camp, the final result would only be pouncing. Empty air. Hiss. Rumble. Pooh. At this moment, as the six-headed blood serpent shot over, it arrived before the Azure Rock Sovereign in the blink of an eye. A cold light flashed through its eyes. Without any hesitation, it extended its claws and swiped viciously. The extremely clear sound of fabric tearing rang out. At this moment, the Azure Rock Sovereign was still in a state of extreme shock and shock. He did not understand why his wings had suddenly snapped under an invisible but terrifying force. The confusion and fear in his heart made his reaction extremely slow. Coupled with the fact that his cultivation level had plummeted, he was already weaker than the six-headed blood dragon. Therefore, Sovereign Azure Rock did not have the time to react to the sudden approach of the six-headed blood WYRM as if it was a sneak attack. His dangling left wing was directly torn off by the six-headed blood flood dragon's claws, and it was thrown into the universe's void on the right. The power of this claw was too strong. After all, the six-headed blood flood dragon had been accumulating its power to begin with. After losing an entire left wing, the Azure Rock Sovereign's body shook violently. Not only did the blood from his broken wings spray into the sky, he even opened his mouth and spat out another arrow of blood. This attack made his already serious injuries even worse. When this arrow of blood was spat out from his mouth like a rainstorm, the cultivation aura emitted from the Azure Rock Sovereign's body plummeted once again. In less than half a breath, it had already fallen. Between the 9th stage pinnacle of the Universe Master level and the 1st stage Universe Supreme level, he could fall to the Supreme level at any time. All of this took a long time to describe, but in fact, it all happened in a breath's time. Not only was Azure Rock Prime unable to react, but the great beings from the various races and powers who were watching from afar in the void hundreds of millions of miles away were all in the same state. From this moment on, the entire vast and boundless void fell into a dead silence. Everywhere, all the great beings in the starry sky subconsciously gasped, and their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. After a full 2 seconds, cries of astonishment came from all directions like a tidal wave, covering the sky and covering the earth. What? Azure Rock Prime is going to fall to the next level? How is this possible? Just a while ago, he was an extremely powerful middle stage supreme, and now he is going to fall to the level of a universe master? This is unbelievable. It's like a dream. It seems that what six-headed blood dragon said was right. Azure Rock Prime did just break through and come out of seclusion. The reason why there was no movement from Green Rainbow Forbidden Land was that he was still in seclusion to break through. He was too impatient and overconfident. He just broke through and didn't even have a solid foundation for his level, but he immediately went out to meet the enemy. And the enemy is a Universe Supreme who is at the same level as him. There is almost no suspense about the result. Maybe he just wanted to scare six-headed blood dragon, but in the end, he miscalculated and was seen through by the enemy. This guy is also a troublemaker. He is not to be trifled with. He didn't care whether Azure Rock Prime did it on purpose or not. He actually dashed forward. In the end, six-headed blood dragon made the right bet. This battle has just begun, and there is already such a bloody scene. The final result is needless to say. It is really shocking. Green Rainbow Star Zone, the headquarters of the Green Rock Race, is going to be finished. I didn't expect such a result in the end. Both six-headed blood dragon and the mysterious master of Magic Hall are too lucky. They even encountered such an almost impossible accident. Screech! Damn you, blood dragon, you must be the one behind this. Here, before the waves of exclamations and sighs from the void space in the distance died down, Azure Rock Prime's earth-shattering screech came from the edge of Green Rainbow Star Zone in front of him again. At this very moment, his heart was on the verge of collapse, but his mind was extremely clear. He knew that he had been tricked. What shocked him even more was that he was about to fall from a great realm, but he didn't even know the identity of the existence that had been lurking in the dark and plotting against him. He didn't know. This was simply too terrifying, and it made Azure Rock Prime's godly soul tremble. As the screech that was full of unwillingness and anger rang out, he, who only had one wing left, didn't move forward. Instead, he retreated. His huge body turned into a beam of green light and retreated toward Green Rainbow Star Zone at an extremely fast speed. Chapter 4681. I told you to leave just now, but you didn't. Now that things have come to this, you're retreating. Who do you think I am? Seeing that Green Rock Prime was about to escape, The six-headed blood dragon's eyes glinted coldly. He dashed forward and chased after Green Rock Prime. Sila hong long long. Pooh! In the blink of an eye, the six-headed blood dragon shot forward and reached Green Rock Prime's side in half a breath's time. With a flash of coldness in his eyes, he extended his claws again without hesitation and swiped at Green Rock Prime, who was escaping at high speed. Another clear sound rang out. At this moment, Autarch Azure Rock's mind was still shrouded in confusion and fear. He had been in a hurry to flee, so his reaction was slow. Coupled with the fact that his current cultivation base had fallen to the level of a half-step Autarch, he still didn't have time to react to the sudden attack from the six-headed blood dragon. This time, the six-headed blood dragon aimed at his wings, which were dangling weakly as well. When the six-headed blood dragon swiped at them with its claws, Qi Zhen tore them off in the blink of an eye and threw them into the distant void of the universe. The power of this swipe was stronger than the previous one. The six-headed blood dragon was full of satisfaction, and his combat power soared. On the other hand, Azure Rock Sovereign had already lost an entire left wing. Now that he was caught off guard, his right wing was torn apart again. His body trembled violently as blood sprayed out from his broken wing. His expression changed drastically as he opened his mouth and spat out another mouthful of blood. His injuries were already extremely severe to begin with, and now, they had clearly worsened. When he spat out this arrow of blood, the aura of cultivation that radiated from Prime Azure Rock's body finally dropped by an entire realm. A few moments ago, he was still a powerful middle-stage supreme, but now, he had fallen to the level of a ninth-stage complete universe master. Even if he struggled, there was no chance for him to survive. He was definitely no match for the six-headed blood dragon at its peak state. There was no suspense in what happened next. In the void space, an earth-shattering battle broke out, but the battle was completely one-sided. The six-headed blood dragon was completely abusing his opponent. A first-stage universe supreme being was abusing a fourth-stage intermediate supreme being. Screech. Bang! In the end, the Azure Rock Prime raised his head and let out an extremely shrill roar. It was filled with endless anger and reluctance. Afterwards, his entire body was smashed to a pulp by a single punch from the six-headed blood serpent. He turned into a bloody mist that dispersed into the air. He was indeed unwilling to accept this. His fall today was a little unclear. If the twin G hadn't been broken when he flapped his wings and rushed out earlier, causing his cultivation level to plummet to level 1 Universe Supreme, how could he have been defeated by the six-headed blood dragon with his original cultivation level of level 4 Intermediate Universe Supreme? This was an incomparably deep and monstrous resentment. Sovereign Azure Rock was unable to figure out what had gone wrong before his death. Just who was behind all of this? Bang bang. Shio! After ending all of this, the six-headed blood dragon waved his hand. The two huge wings of the Green Rock Supreme that he had torn off in the distant void instantly shot over and exploded, turning into a bloody mist. Immediately after, along with the majestic bloody mist that had exploded from Sovereign Azure Rock's body, it was swept up by the six-headed blood dragon with a wave of his hand and compressed into a blood bead that was about 3 feet in radius. After all, this was the majestic bloody mist that had been formed after the body of a Universe Supreme exploded. Naturally, it couldn't be wasted so easily. Run! Run! Everything that had happened before had taken a long time to describe, but in fact, from the moment Sovereign Azure Rock appeared and rushed out from the depths of the Cyan Rainbow Star Field to the moment when his body exploded and turned into a bloody mist that was taken away by the six-headed blood dragon, from the beginning to the end, it had only been 10 breaths. Within a short span of 10 breaths, a powerful mid-fourth order supreme being was completely annihilated, and the one who killed him was merely a first-order universe supreme being. All of this was like a dream. Countless great beings of the Green Rock race in the Cyan Rainbow Star Field couldn't come back to their senses at all. All of them were petrified and in a daze. At this moment, the majestic bloody mist formed by the explosion of Sovereign Azure Rock's body had been compressed into a blood bead and then taken away by the six-headed blood dragon. Only then did they come back to their senses. The entire Cyan Rainbow Star Field in front of them trembled completely at this moment. The expressions of countless great beings of the Green Rock race changed drastically. They cried out involuntarily and scattered in all directions. Moo! The 3 major armies and the captive army of the Blood Dragon race, all of you, move out and stop all the battleships and great beings of the Green Rock race. At this moment, Green Ox was full of pride. He raised his head and mooed again. The voice of his spirit consciousness reverberated throughout the vast void space of the Cyan Rainbow Star Field. Everyone in the Cyan Rainbow Starfield, listen up. Those with cultivation bases below universe supremacy will not be implicated as long as they surrender. If they refuse to realize their mistakes and resist stubbornly, kill them all. Those who voluntarily give up and surrender, turn off the engine of the battleship. All personnel will leave the battleship and form an array in the void space on the right side of the battleship. Wait to be taken in. Those who don't listen to orders and act rashly will be killed immediately. Rumble. As soon as his voice fell, the three major armies and the captive army of the Blood Dragon race behind him, as well as countless experts, battleships, all rushed out and entered the Cyan Rainbow Starfield. The great battle began in an instant. The vast void of the universe within a radius of tens of billions of kilometers had turned into a battlefield of iron and blood. Earth-shattering rumbling sounds had not stopped since this moment. In the distant void, the scouts from the various clans and forces were all petrified. After a long time, the battle in the Cyan Rainbow Star Field gradually intensified. Only then did one sigh after another resound in the surrounding void of the universe. It continued. This is truly too surprising. I didn't expect the final result of this battle to be like this. The powerful Green Rock Race's base camp was completely destroyed in the blink of an eye, just like the Blood Dragon race. This is simply... everything is like a dream. If there are no accidents with the fall of the Green Rock Starfield, the next target of the Magic Hall's army will most likely be the forbidden land of tyrannical blood, where the base camp of the Battle Lion race is located. Their self-confidence has already swelled to the extreme, so it's naturally impossible for them to stop here. If they do, they will undoubtedly be laughed at by the various clans and forces. If that's really the case, the six-headed Blood Dragon and the Green Ox will undoubtedly be digging their own graves. Green Rock Supreme was just unlucky. He had just made a breakthrough, and before he could stabilize his realm, he encountered the three major armies of the Magic Hall. The problem is that he is unwilling to die. But the Battle Lion Supreme guarding the forbidden land of tyrannical blood is not the same. He has already shown his face in the void space of this fragment of the universe, and his strength has already stabilized at the 4th level of the Universe Supreme, and there is still a certain distance between him and the 5th level of the Universe Supreme. Chapter 4682. Rumble. Rumble. In the Cyan Rainbow Starfield ahead, the earth-shaking rumbles lasted for an entire day before the battle finally ended. However, the post-battle counting obviously took a lot more time. In this battle, there were still many warriors from the Cyan Rock race that chose to stubbornly resist. However, there were also many who chose to give up and surrender. Of course, it was impossible for all of these deserters to survive. This interstellar war affected the entire star field. It was too chaotic. Many prisoners of war were accidentally injured by the cannons of both sides during the chaotic battle. They were unwilling to die. The following post-battle counting took a few days. The final statistics were very pleasing. There were close to 200 million captured battleships and over 1 billion blood WYRM warriors. Among them, there were over 100 emperors and over 30 emperors. After the 3 legions returned victorious, these forces would be incorporated into the captive legions that had yet to be deployed, along with the Blood Flood Dragon clan captives. Set off. Rumble. After everything was settled, the Green Ox gave the order, and an earth-shattering roar resounded in the void. The 3 armies of the Magic Hall, the ferocious beasts, the survivors and the nomads, along with the Blood WYRM and the Green Rock Race's army of close to 300 million battleships, set off towards the distant space. The third target was the Battle Lion Race's main camp, the Tyrant Blood Forbidden Ground. In the distant space, the scout battleships, ferocious beasts and battleships from the various races and powers could still be faintly seen. They had never left, but in these few days, they didn't dare to get too close. They stayed in an extremely distant region and looked over. They watched from afar. They weren't sure if the 3 armies of the Magic Hall would head towards the Tyrant Blood Forbidden Ground. Hence, they had to stay and wait for the situation to change. At this moment, the captive army of the 3 armies set off from the Cyan Rainbow Starfield and headed towards the Tyrant Blood Forbidden Ground under the Green Bull's order. The distant scout battleships and ferocious beasts of the various powers, as well as the warriors on the battleships, all exclaimed in shock. Exclamations of surprise followed closely behind, trailing behind from a distance. At the same time, everything that happened here spread to other areas of the void of the fragment of untainted land at an astounding speed. The entire vast and boundless void was boiling. The gazes of countless experts converged on them. 7 days later, the 3 legions of the Magic Hall and the Captive Legion made up of the captives from the Blood Flood Dragon clan and the Green Rock clan finally arrived at the edge of the Blood Tyrant Forbidden Land. They slowly stopped in the void outside the Blood Tyrant Forbidden Land from 100 million kilometers away. At the edge of the Forbidden Land of tyrannical blood ahead, a huge fleet of battleships could be seen. There were not many battleships, far less than the Blood Wyrm clan and Cyan Rock clan's headquarters that had already been destroyed. At a glance, the War Lion clan's army, which was already in formation, only had about 200 million battleships in total. However, they were all large and small fortresses and strongholds, belonging to the elite army. If nothing unexpected happened, the Tyrant Blood Forbidden Land behind them was most likely empty. All the battleships in the War Lion race's base camp had already been set off. This was clearly the rhythm of a decisive battle. Swish! Swish, swish, swish! As the huge fleet of battleships stopped, a few faint sounds of breaking through the void could be heard very quickly. Under the gazes of tens of thousands of people, the 6-headed Blood Wyrm, Green Ox, Zhao Dong, Qian Nan, Sun Shi, and Li Bei rushed out from their respective flagship strongholds and arrived in front of the Magic Hall's army. Their expressions were disdainful as they looked at the Tyrant Blood Forbidden Land in front of them. "Where's that old mad lion? Hurry up and come out to die." Although Green Ox's cultivation was the weakest, he was still the commander of this Magic Hall's army. After all, he was an old man by Yi Xian's side. Zhao Dong and the other 3, as well as the 6-headed Blood Wyrm, had no choice but to accept this point. Roar! Swish! Just as he finished speaking, a shocking roar resounded from the depths of the Tyrant Blood Forbidden Land in front of them, and a figure swept out. It was actually a mighty lion whose entire body was as red as blood. The cultivation aura emitted from its body was clearly that of a 4th-level Universe Supreme, which was the middle stage of this realm. It was incomparably powerful. However, his body was only around 10 feet tall. It did not seem to match his cultivation at all. A mere 1st-level titled Emperor actually dares to assume the majesty of a tiger. You're simply courting death. This mighty lion whose entire body was as red as blood was the strongest being in charge of the Battle Lion clan's main camp, Mad Lion Supreme. At this moment, he also glanced at Green Ox, 6-headed Blood Wyrm, and the others with disdain, and a sinister voice was instantly transmitted. "In today's battle, my Battle Lion clan won't move a single soldier or ship. Just this body alone is enough to kill all of you. Kill all of you here." As soon as these words were spoken, private discussions instantly broke out in the void. Everyone was moved, but the expressions on their faces clearly revealed disbelief. After all, the 3 armies of the Magic Hall and the captives of the Blood Wyrm and Green Rock clans were too large. Even if they weren't a match for Mad Lion Supreme, if he wanted to rely on his own strength to stop the entire Magic Hall's army, the Battle Lion clan behind him would be able to fight against him. For an army to not move a single soldier or ship, this was somewhat inconceivable. However, in reality, Mad Lion Supreme's words weren't an exaggeration. Even though he only had the strength of a 4th-level Universe Supreme, in reality, he alone was absolutely enough to completely annihilate the entire Magic Hall's army. This was because he could still use the bloodline ability of the Mad Lion, and he could already use it up to the 7th transformation. With every transformation, his strength would increase by 1 small level. 7 transformations. His body would continuously expand by 10 times 7 times. Every time his body expanded, his strength would also increase by 7 small levels. Currently, he was a 4th-level Universe Supreme, but when he reached the 7th transformation, his strength would reach the level of a 2nd-level Primordial Great Being. Level. That was the legendary Great Being of the Primordial Great Being, who was strong enough to sweep through the void fragment of this universe. This was also the reason why the scale of the battleship army in the main camp of the Battle Lion clan was so inconspicuous. It was because they didn't need to rely on the power of the battleship army to stand firmly in this void without falling. 9 Mad Lion transformations. First transformation. At this moment, Mad Lion Supreme raised his head and let out a shocking roar. Following that roar in the next instant, his body, which was only 30 meters tall, suddenly increased in size. An indescribable bloodline energy immediately surged within his body, converging into a similar wave of energy. A tidal wave of energy. In the blink of an eye, the energy and blood within Mad Lion Supreme's body increased tremendously, and his body, which was only 30 meters tall, directly soared to a height of 300 meters. His strength also increased by 1 level, reaching the 5th level Universe Supreme. 9 Mad Lion Transformations. Second transformation. But it wasn't over yet. Following that, a second roar rang out. This time, the energy and blood within Mad Lion Supreme's body surged once more, and the extent of it surpassed the first transformation. Chapter 4683. Roar. 9 Changes of the Mad Lion. Third change. Before anyone could react, Mad Lion Supreme raised his head and roared again. At this moment, as the third transformation was activated, the surging chi and blood in his body surged again. It was like a roaring river, directly causing his body to expand rapidly like a balloon. From the original height of 3,000 feet, it quickly grew to 2,000 feet, 3,000 feet, until the final height of 30,000 feet. As for the cultivation aura in his body, it soared to the 7th level of the Universe Supreme. In less than 3 breaths' time, Supreme Wild Lion let out 3 roars and activated the bloodline ability of the Wild Lion. Even though he had only activated the bloodline ability to the third transformation, his body instantly grew to over 10,000 zhong tall. His cultivation also increased by 3 minor ranks. From the previous intermediate level of the 4th level to the current advanced level of the 7th level. All of this was too shocking, and it happened too quickly. Everyone was caught off guard, and all of them opened their mouths wide, completely dumbfounded. For a moment, they even forgot to cry out in alarm. However, all of this was clearly far from the end. This Wild Lion Sovereign was an ancestor of the War Lion race, and the bloodline ability of the 9 Berserk Lion transformations. Even if he had yet to comprehend the 9th transformation to perfection, it was impossible for him to just stop at the 9th level. 3 changes. 9 changes of the Mad Lion. 4th change. In an instant, another roar was heard, and the sound shook the surroundings. The 30,000-foot-tall Mad Lion Supreme raised his head and roared, and this corner of the void trembled slightly. Then his bloodline true body, which was already 10,000 feet tall, expanded 10 times again like a balloon, reaching a terrifying height of 100,000 feet in an instant. As for the cultivation aura in his body, it soared to the 8th level of the Universe Supreme. It still wasn't over. Following that, a series of roars were heard, and the entire void trembled. 9 changes of the Mad Lion. 5th change. 9 changes of the Mad Lion. 6th change. 9 changes of the Mad Lion. 7th change. Roar. Roar. In the blink of an eye, as these furious roars rang out, the Wild Lion Supremacy's body began to swell. In just 3 breaths of time, he had grown from 100,000 zhong in size to 100 million zhong in size. 100 million feet, which was equivalent to 600,000 miles, was like a small star, incomparably terrifying. As for the cultivation aura emanating from his body, it had increased by another 3 small levels. Previously it was at the 8th level of the Universe Supreme level. Now, it had reached the 2nd level of the Primordial Great Power. This was the legendary Primordial Age Supreme Being. Furthermore, this was not the first time he had entered this realm. Instead, he had already stabilized himself in the initial stage of the Supreme Being and had reached the 2nd stage of this realm. Not to mention crushing the Magic Hall Legion in front of them. To exaggerate, if the other mighty figures or desolate supremacies did not appear, just the Wild Lion Supreme alone was enough to sweep through the void fragment of the Chaos World. All of this happened too quickly, and it was too shocking. As the person involved, Wild Lion Supreme felt extremely agitated. Although this wasn't the first time he had experienced this, he still couldn't calm down. It was even more so for the scouts from the various clans and forces who were watching from afar. At this moment, their expressions had changed drastically, and even their bodies were trembling uncontrollably. 10 breaths ago, Wild Lion Supreme Being's cultivation level was merely at the 4th level of the Universe Supreme level. Then, a few breaths ago, when he activated the bloodline in his body and executed the 3rd transformation of the 9 changes of the Wild Lion Supreme Being, his cultivation level soared to the 8th level of the advanced stage of the 8th level of the Universe Supreme level. Then, without waiting for everyone to react, he roared 3 more times. In just a few breaths' time, as the 7th transformation of the Wild Lion Supreme Being was executed, his cultivation level soared by another 3 levels, and he had crossed a large realm and directly charged to the 2nd level of the Universe Supreme level. Today, he was at the 2nd level of the Primordial Great Power. All of this was simply unimaginable, and the scouts from the various clans and forces in the distance were dumbfounded. Those beings from the 3 main starry skies of the current era were one thing. Although they had never seen anyone execute the 7th transformation of the 9 changes of the Wild Lion Supreme Being with their own eyes, and it was based on their own cultivation level, they were originally at the level of the Universe Supreme level. Under the circumstances of the Universe Supreme level. However, they were, after all, from the 3 main starry skies of the current era, and they had more or less heard of such a heaven-defying bloodline ability of the Warrior Lion Supreme Being of the Second Universe. However, the scouts of the indigenous fierce beasts and remnant forces, who originally belonged to the void fragment of the primitive world, had never heard of this before. Now that they suddenly saw it, their hearts had already trembled, and their entire minds were buzzing. Rang! After a large number of gasps of cold air, a wave of exclamations instantly filled the air. What? A second level of the primordial great power? This is the rhythm of sweeping through this space? No wonder the Warrior Lion Supreme Being of the Second Universe sent so few battleships to this fragment of the universe. All of them are elites, and they are simply walking the path of high-quality goods. Battleships seek quality and not quantity, because they already have a powerful desolation great power. There is no need to rely on such a conventional power like the battleship army. The 3 legions of the Magic Hall have really kicked a hard iron plate this time. Although the 3 legions and the captive army are huge in scale, the existence with the strongest individual combat power is only at the first level of the Universe Supreme level, and the opponent is a powerful second-level Supreme Being. He is not even comparable to an ant, and he can crush him to death with just one finger. The outcome of this battle is already without suspense. What the Warrior Lion Supreme Being of the Warrior Lion Supreme Being said was right. Previously, he was not speaking arrogantly. Facing the 3 legions of the Magic Hall who came to provoke him, even if he only relied on his own strength, he could easily destroy the enemy. As for the Warrior Lion Supreme Army, there is no need to send out a single soldier or ship. Sigh, a good show is about to end. Until the last sigh came, Green Ox, 6-headed Blood Dragon, Zhao Dong, Qian Nan, Sun Shi, and Li Bei trembled and recovered from their absent-minded state. The scene that just happened in front of them was too shocking. They were indeed not very interested in the Wild Lion Supreme Being who was only a second-order Supreme Expert. After all, their own Lord Demon Lord was already a remote ancient Supreme Being. Compared to him, this War Lion race compared to the Warrior Lion Supreme Being of the Warrior Lion Supreme Being, Wild Lion Supreme Being was not much different from an ant. However, the Warrior Lion Supreme Being of the 4th level had transformed into a second-level Supreme Being within a short period of time. The whole process was extremely shocking. Even Green Ox, 6-headed Blood Dragon, Zhao Dong, Qian Nan, Sun Shi, and Li Bei were extremely shocked because of this. However, it was only shock and it was far from enough to reach the level of shock. Chapter 4684. The scene before their eyes was too strange. After everyone saw it, they were all stunned at the same time. Puzzled expressions appeared on their faces, and their heads were filled with fog. In front of them, Wild Lion Supreme from Tyrant Blood Forbidden Land performed the bloodline technique of 9 changes of Wild Lion, and his cultivation level and physique skyrocketed. In a short span of a dozen breaths, his original strength of a 4th-order universe supremacy had skyrocketed to a 2nd-order primordial era great being. And in the 3 great armies of the Magic Hall, the strongest one, 6-headed Blood Dragon, was only at level 1 of the Universe Supremes. As for the other 5 great armies, Zhao Dong, Qian Nan, Sun Shi, and Li Bei were only at level 1 of the Universe Supremes. The last one, Green Bull, was only at level 1 of the Undying Emperors. Such a lineup was not even comparable to ants in front of the primordial era's 2nd-order Wild Lion Supreme. He only needed to stretch out a finger to crush all of them in the void. It could be said that the disparity in strength between the 2 sides was so great that it could not be described as outrageous. However, in such a bad situation, not only were the 6 great commanders of the 3 great armies of the Magic Hall not shocked, but they also did not escape in horror. Instead, after exchanging glances, they all grinned at each other. Their bodies were as steady as Mount Tai, and their knees did not tremble. They were very confident, as if they did not care about the powerful level 2 of the Universe Supremes in the void hundreds of millions of miles away. Such a scene stunned everyone. Then, after a short period of silence, the scouts from the various races and powers who were hibernating in the void behind shook their heads and sighed. Sigh, it seems that the Green Ox and the 6-headed Blood Flood Dragon have been scared out of their wits by the terrifying scene in front of them. This is clearly the rhythm of a mental breakdown. Even if the War Lion clan's Wild Lion Supreme doesn't make a move, they'll be crippled today. Their minds will collapse. It is as if they have gone mad and are ruined. This is how it should be. After all, even six-headed blood dragon, a level 1 of the Universe Supremes, is no different from an ant in the eyes of Wild Lion Supreme. Especially that green bull, who is only at level 1 of the Undying Emperors, standing at the forefront of the battle line between the two armies is a huge joke. It is too dazzling. Let's retreat. There is no more suspense. The battleship army of the warrior lion race will not even be mobilized. Wild Lion Supreme alone can destroy the entire army of the Magic Hall in a short period of time. That's right, the current Wild Lion Supreme is already a powerful second-stage desolate ancient. I am lying dormant in the distant void, spying on him from afar. To him, it is actually a great disrespect. If he is angry because of this, no matter how far away he is, he can instantly. He will kill us in an instant. For the sake of our little lives, it's better to tactfully flee far away before the battle begins. As these sighs and whispers sounded, the scouts of the major clans and forces who were lying dormant in the distant void and looking at the battlefield from afar, whether it was the ferocious beasts, the survivors, the battleships, all of them were watching and spying. All of them started to slowly retreat at the same time. The scale of the battle today had exceeded their expectations. No one dared to offend a powerful level 2 of the Universe Supremes. That was tantamount to courting death. Besides, the final result of the battle was no longer suspenseful. Hence, there was no need for them to stay here. Ants, this sovereign will give you one last chance. At this time, as the scouts of the various powers who were hiding in the distance slowly retreated, Wild Lion Supreme, who was at the edge of the blood tyrant forbidden land, transmitted his voice again. It was filled with endless disdain and arrogance. The 6 of you, kneel down and beg for mercy in half an hour. If you can move me today, I will leave you a complete corpse. Roar. At this moment, Wild Lion Supreme, whose cultivation had reached the second order of the primordial era, was simply complacent. Halfway through his words, he raised his head and let out a wild roar. Following that, the voice of his divine sense resounded throughout the vast void of the entire star field. Everyone could hear it clearly. As for the subordinates of the Magic Hall Legion at the back, whether it is the beasts, the survivors, or the experts from the various races of the 3 great starry skies, no matter what their cultivation is, as long as they surrender, I will not implicate them. If they refuse to realize their mistakes and resist stubbornly, kill them all. Those who surrender voluntarily, the warship's kinetic energy cabin will be turned off. The personnel will leave the warship and line up in the void on the right side of the warship, waiting to be incorporated. Anyone who refuses to listen to orders and acts rashly will be killed immediately. Roar! After finishing his last sentence, Wild Lion Supreme once again raised his head and let out a wild roar, his arrogant and domineering aura unfurling without a doubt. These words were the words roared out by Azure Ox when the 3 great legions of the Magic Hall Legion were attacking the headquarters of the Blood Flood Dragon and Azure Rock clans. Now, coming from the mouth of Wild Lion Supreme of the Battle Lion clan, the target was the 3 great legions of the Magic Hall Legion. This was clearly intentional, a blatant humiliation and ridicule. Unfortunately, after Wild Lion Supreme's divine sense voice faded away, the countless battleships in the void in front of him didn't react in the slightest. Perhaps the captives of the Blood Flood Dragon and Azure Rock clans were already moved, but there was no need for them to come out of the warships and surrender. Because these 2 clans and the Battle Lion clan were on good terms. Even if Wild Lion Supreme of the 2 clans made a move, he would not implicate them. As for the 3 great legions of the Magic Hall Legion, it was even more impossible for anyone to be moved. At this moment, whether it was the beasts of the 3 great legions, the survivors of the primordial era, or the experts of the 3 great starry skies in the Nomad Legion, the way they looked at Wild Lion Supreme was as if they were looking at a fool. At the very front of the legion, the smiles on the faces of the 6-headed Blood Flood Dragon, Azure Ox, Zhao Dong, Qian Nan, Sun Shi, and Li Bei became even more brilliant. At this moment, they were indeed very happy. The more arrogant Wild Lion Supreme was, the more interesting this scene would be in their eyes. Humph, you refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. After waiting for a few breaths, there was no movement at all. On the contrary, the 6-headed Blood Flood Dragon, Azure Ox, and the others at the front of the opposing camp were even happier. When this scene fell into the eyes of Wild Lion Supreme, he immediately felt that it was boring. As a cold snort came out from his nose, his expression darkened, and the aura of cultivation in his body suddenly condensed. This was the rhythm of him immediately making a move. You are publicly calling for the Star-Lord subordinates and generals to surrender. Do you think this Star-Lord is a decoration? Right at this moment, Yi Xian's voice sounded in the void without any warning. It was impossible to know where it came from. Chapter 4685. In the void, Yi Xian's voice suddenly rang out without any warning. Sila! Immediately after, almost in the next instant, a crack appeared in the void far above Wild Lion Supreme's head. An incomparably huge black club, like a giant pillar that could pierce through the sky, stretched out from the crack and smashed down on Wild Lion Supreme's head. See! At this moment, an unprecedented sense of life and death crisis surfaced in Wild Lion Supreme's heart. Almost subconsciously, he immediately raised his head to look at the distant sky above his head. Along with a clear gasp of cold air from his mouth, Wild Lion Supreme's expression instantly changed, and his body trembled violently as he exclaimed in shock, "Stage 2 Desolate Master? This is impossible." Pang! Without waiting for him to finish his exclamation of shock, the black club that stretched out from the crack in the sky had already smashed down with a loud bang, landing on Wild Lion Supreme's head. An earth-shattering explosion resounded, reverberating throughout the entire void. Wild Lion Supreme's huge body instantly exploded into a cloud of blood mist under this attack, spreading out just like that. Until death, he couldn't even finish his exclamation of shock. It could be said that he died in an incomparably sullen manner. Although Wild Lion Supreme's true cultivation level was only at the 4th level of the Universe Supreme, the current him, under the 7th transformation of the 9 changes of the Wild Lion bloodline ability, his true combat power was that of a true Stage 2 Supreme Being. A powerful Stage 2 Supreme Being was actually smashed to death by a black club. His entire huge body turned into a cloud of blood mist, and not a single strand of hair was left behind. He didn't even have time to finish his words. This was simply the most cowardly Supreme Being of the primordial era in history. Of course, this time, Yi Xian's true body actually didn't come to take action. He was still in the magic hall of the Rising Sun Forbidden Ground, only sending a projection over with a black club. Even so, it was completely enough to kill a Stage 2 Supreme Being. It could be said that it was incomparably easy. Of course, he had also deliberately made some changes to the big-headed black stick. Although the general shape was similar, it was still an incomparably ferocious big stick. However, it had already turned into the shape of a club. It was still different from the original big-headed black stick. After all, in this void fragment of the void, there were too many Supreme Beings from the 3 main starry skies of the current era, from the various races and top powers of the 3 main starry skies of the current era. If he directly showed the black club to others, he was afraid that he would be instantly exposed. Yi Xian currently didn't intend to do so, so he could only do so. Fortunately, although the shape had changed, the power was still the same, and was still ferocious, overflowing with the sky. Shio! Almost in the next moment, the sound of a faint sound of breaking the void, the black club, from the void fragment of the void in the sky, the black from the void in the sky, the void from the crack in the void fragment of the void fragment of the void space. This was a violent ape. Its body was only about 10 feet tall, but its eyes were filled with a fierce light. At this moment, it had already put away its black club. Its hands were behind its back, and the expression on its face was calm. It was as if what it had just done was just a small matter that was not worth mentioning. The violent ape was Yi Xian. Of course, it was not his original body, but a projection clone sent over by a great divine ability. Even so, in the eyes of the 6-headed blood flood dragon, Zhao Dong, Qian Nan, Sun Shi, and Li Bei, he was still their demon master. Even the green ox, who was extremely familiar with Yi Xian, could tell that after this fellow sent a projection clone over and killed the Berserk Lion Supreme of the Battle Lion race with a huge club, he did not leave. Instead, he walked out of the void fragment and even posed. He clearly wanted to take the opportunity to show off. Therefore, although the green ox was rather speechless, at such a critical moment and in public, it would not embarrass Yi Xian. "Welcome, Demon Master." Demon Master is mighty. After being stunned for a moment, the 6-headed blood dragon, green ox, Zhao Dong, Qian Nan, Sun Shi, and Li Bei all knelt down on one knee in the void and called out to the Demon Lord. In the void of the universe behind the 6 of them, in the 3 legions of the Demon Palace, all the ferocious beasts of the starry sky, the survivors, and the current experts of the various races and forces of the nomadic army, regardless of whether they were in the void or on the battleship. Within the battleship, all of them knelt down without exception. As for the captives of the Blood Flood Dragon and the Azure Rock race that had just been recruited recently, although they had never seen the so-called Demon Master, after being stunned for a moment, no one dared to delay. Regardless of whether they were willing or not, they all knelt down on one knee. "Go down and call out to the Demon Master." In an instant, The vast expanse of heaven and earth was filled with the sound of worship and respect. Even the void trembled slightly. All of this had happened too quickly and too quickly. From the moment Wild Lion Sovereign subconsciously raised his head to look at the sky above his head until now, his entire body had disappeared. However, endless sounds of worship resounded in the void. From beginning to end, it had only been 4 or 5 breaths of time. Whether it was the Battle Lion Race's 200 million battleship army, or the various large races that were retreating in the distance, none of them had the time to react. However, without exception, their bodies all froze on the spot. Everyone's mouths were wide open, their eyes were wide open, and their expressions were as if they had just been struck by lightning. Then, in a short 2 to 3 breaths, these fellows finally recovered from the indescribable shock that enveloped their hearts. As their bodies shook violently, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. Then, they subconsciously cried out in alarm. For a moment, the sound was like a tide, and in the void, it was as if a great earthquake had broken out. Heaven's Lord Wild Lion Sovereign actually fell? How is this possible? Right now, he is an incomparably powerful second stage almighty in the 7th transformation of the Berserk Lion. It's over. Even Lord Wild Lion Sovereign was instantly killed. Countless clansmen in my Battle Lion Race's base camp will probably not be able to escape today. Hiss. What happened? That second stage almighty of the Battle Lion Race actually died? He was smashed into a bloody mist by a staff and dispersed with a loud bang? An illusion. It must be an illusion. Demon Master? That astral berserk ape is actually the legendary master of the Magic Hall. It's too powerful. Just a projection avatar that descended could easily insta-kill Wild Lion Sovereign of the Battle Lion Race, blasting him to the point of exploding. This is definitely the cultivation level of a primordial supreme, the strongest supreme existence below the heavenly Tao realm. Chapter 4686. At this time, along with a wave of exclamations in the surrounding void, the starry sky berserk ape that stepped out of the void crack high in the sky had already turned its head to look at the 200 million Battle Lion Race army outside the tyrant blood-forbidden area. His eyes gleamed coldly as he snorted. That old lion has already fallen. Why aren't you all kneeling? What are you all trying to do? Pang! Pang pang! Almost in the next instant, 4 large fortresses with a diameter of 100,000 meters exploded in this Battle Lion Race elite army of 200 million. It was extremely thorough, not even having the chance to become a huge fireball, as they were all annihilated in space. Other than Mad Lion Supreme, within the main camp of the Battle Lion Race within the Forbidden Land, there were 4 other beings that exceeded the Emperor level. These 4 elders were all Universe Knights, similar to Zhao Dong, Qian Nan, Sun Shi and Li Bei. Now, these 4 old fellows, along with the great stronghold that they were in, had all been turned into ashes. However, the starry sky berserk ape, who had done all of this, didn't even raise a finger. With just a thought, it had already been completed. Previously, the Green Ox and the nomadic army under its command had fled for more than 10 years in the void of the great desolate world. It could be said that they had been bullied to the extreme. This time, Yi Xian mobilized the Demon Palace's army to take revenge and place the Blood Flood Dragon, the Azure Rock, and the Battle Lion in the ranks of the 3 races. In order to strike at the target, he could ignore the beings below the night level, but as the true upper echelon of the night level who gave the orders, he wouldn't let any of them go. Only then could the other races and powers feel the determination of the Magic Hall. In the future, if anyone dared to provoke them, they would fight to the death, and everyone would have to consider carefully. Plop! Plop! At this moment, as the 4 venerables of the Warring Lion Race, along with the large fortress they were in, were completely turned into ashes in the blink of an eye and disappeared. Within the army of 200 million warships of the Warring Lion Race, countless thumping sounds could be heard as they knelt down. The sound of kneeling could be heard. A large number of Lion Race clansmen who had been standing in the void of the universe outside the battleship were the same. Their bodies went limp as they knelt down in the void, their bodies trembling. Moo! What are you waiting for? Immediately take them in. Seeing this, Green Cow raised his head and roared, announcing the fate of all the warriors within the main camp. This battle was too shocking. A normal battle had ended before it even started. After doing all of this, Yi Xian didn't stay here at all. He turned his head around and swept his gaze across the distant void. With a cold snort, he stepped into the spatial crack that had always existed and returned, disappearing without a trace. The scouts from the various clans and forces in the distant void all felt chills run down their spines as if they had fallen into an ice cave after being swept by his gaze. They knew that the last glance was a silent warning from the master of the magic hall. An expert of this level didn't need to use words to express anything. A glance was enough to suppress everything. With endless fear and trepidation, these scouts from the various races didn't dare to stay here any longer. They all quietly left this place. And with their departure, everything that had just happened here would definitely spread through the void of this primordial world fragment at the fastest speed. The mysterious master of the magic hall, who was also the boss behind the scenes that Green Cow of the Starry Sky Nomadic Army had been thinking about for more than 10 years, was actually an extremely powerful second-order desolate supremacy. Once this news spread, the entire void would probably fall silent. Who knew how many people would be scared out of their wits? In the past 10 years, in this primordial world fragment, the races and powers that had bullied Green Cow and his Starry Sky Nomadic Army were not few in number. Although he had only taken the lead and dealt with the Blood Flood Dragon, Green Rock, and Battle Lion clans for the time being, if they met again in the future, as long as the Green Ox made a ruckus, the clans that had once bullied him would probably not have a good time. This time, the post-battle inventory of the Battle Lion race's headquarters in the Tyrant Blood Forbidden Ground only took a day. Green Cow also took this opportunity to gather the captives and battleships of the Blood Dragon, Green Rock, and Battle Lion race. The final statistics were pleasing. After this battle, the three races had captured close to 600 million battleships of various types, and close to 10 billion strong warriors of the three races. Among them, there were more than 300 emperors and over 100 emperors. These powers, when the three armies returned victorious, would all be included in the captive army that hadn't been sent out yet. From then on, the Blood Dragon, Green Rock and Battle Lion races' powers in this primordial world fragment would be completely removed. Gathering together, they would become one of the four armies of the Magic Hall, the Captive Army. The original Captive Army was made up of the captives from the Blood Dragon, Green Rock and Battle Lion race. Now, with the addition of the captives from the three races, the higher-ups of this army, the emperors, would reach over 200. The original 300 emperors would reach over 600. Their total military strength was over 20 billion. There were all kinds of warships and fortresses, as well as small fortresses with a diameter of 50,000 meters. The total number of fortresses was over 1 billion. This time, the Blood Flood Dragon, Green Rock, and Battle Lion tribes had captured over 30 million fortresses with a diameter of 100,000 meters. After they returned, these 20 million fortresses would all be taken out and provided to the elites who walked the path of travel. Nomad Army. The nomadic army under the Devil Hall originally had 20 million large fortresses with a diameter of 100,000 meters. After receiving these supplies, they would have an astonishing 50 million fortresses with a diameter of 100,000 meters. 50 million, and all 100,000-meter large fortresses, this was definitely a terrifying number. If they were all fired at once, 50 million antimatter energy cannons with a diameter of 30,000-40,000 m would envelop an entire starfield. Even a primordial ancient would be afraid. Even he would have to retreat in fear. Once everything was done, under the Azure Ox's orders, the three armies of the Demonic Hall took the captives from the Bloodline Serpent, Azure Rock, and Battle Lion clans and set off on their triumphant return to the Forbidden Land of Sunrise. Very quickly, the space around the Tyrant Blood Forbidden Land went completely silent. As they left, the entire vast space of the primordial world fragment began to boil. Everyone was shocked and kept quiet out of fear. At the same time, within the ancestral land of the Blood Dragon race of the Second Universe. Chapter 4687. The Blood Flood Dragon clan was currently one of the top 10 clans in the Second Universe of the three main planes of the universe. However, the truth was that even in the ancient era, the Blood WYRM clan was extremely famous in the endless starry sky. The current Blood Flood Dragon clan was the bloodline descendants of the nine-headed Blood Flood Dragon of the primordial era. The bloodline ancestor of the nine-headed Blood Flood Dragon was the legendary Blood Sea Demon Flood Dragon of the primordial era. The first ancestor of the Blood Flood Dragon clan was already a primordial era almighty existence at the end of the primordial era. He had even caught up with the tail end of the primordial era's great battle that caused chaos in the primordial era. He was not injured in the battle and died after that. For countless years, in a secret realm in the depths of the Blood Flood Dragon clan's ancestral land, there had always been a boundless blood cloud that was thousands of miles wide that rolled endlessly in the void. This blood cloud had a majestic aura that stretched for thousands of miles. Within the blood cloud, One could vaguely see a 10,000-foot-long nine-headed blood flood dragon swallowing clouds and spitting out mist. Its aura was not as strong as primordial supreme beings like the golden divine dragon or the primordial yaksha, but it was not as strong as primordial supreme beings like the void ladle. It was not weak. This nine-headed blood flood dragon was clearly heavily injured. He was the first ancestor of the blood flood dragon clan, the nine-headed blood flood dragon. At the end of the primordial era's great battle, only 3 of the 9 heads of the nine-headed blood flood dragon were left. His body was also covered in wounds. He belonged to the primeval Heaven's Eye faction. While he was hiding in the deepest part of the blood flood dragon race's ancestral land and healing his wounds in secret, there was always a chain about 3 meters long that suddenly dropped down from the sky above the nine-headed blood flood dragon's head. It was the Netherworld Furnace's runic lotus that delivered the all-evil origin liquid to him. In the past, before the changes in the origin of all evil star region occurred, a drop of origin liquid of all evil would drip from the end of the chain every year. However, the nine-headed blood serpent would not use up all of it. The nine-headed blood WYRM would only absorb about 3/4 of the evil origin elixir that was produced every year to repair itself. As for the remaining quarter, he would inject it into the giant crimson egg that was surging up and down in the blood cloud central domain. The blood-colored egg was his direct descendant, and it could be said that he was the second-generation ancestor of the blood WYRM tribe. Once they were born, they would possess the cultivation of the universe realm, and their future would be limitless. In fact, the blood-colored egg was the Crown Prince Jiao. Back when Yi Xian was in the deepest part of the root of all evil, he had borrowed the power of the headless corpses to enter the netherworld cauldron and secretly concoct some abominable venom. At that time, a drop of it followed the rune chains of the netherworld furnace and was transported to the deepest part of the blood WYRM clan's ancestral land, where it was obtained by the nine-headed blood WYRM. It was also at that time that the nine-headed bloodhorn dragon was almost poisoned to death. Even the horned dragon Crown Prince, which had been in gestation, was injured because of this. After waiting for a year, this was the result. The nine-headed blood WYRM was furious, but because his injuries were too severe, he couldn't tear through the void space to search for the horned dragon Crown Prince. At that moment, he could only vent his anger by roaring like thunder. At that time, all the members of the blood WYRM clan outside the secret region, including the leader, were prostrating themselves on the ground, trembling. They didn't know what had happened in the secret region of the ancestral land to make the bloodline ancestor so angry. Later, the one drop of all evil origin liquid that the netherworld furnace produced every year suddenly doubled. For a few years, 2 drops were delivered every year. Because of this, the injuries of the nine-headed blood WYRM healed quickly, and the Crown Prince Jiao was born because of this. Unfortunately, the Crown Prince Jiao's foundation was damaged by the all-evil origin liquid during the gestation process, so he was congenitally deficient. Because of this, the nine-headed blood WYRM doted on the Crown Prince Jiao a lot. After Yi Xian entered the void space fragment of the Chaos Era from the Demon clan in the second universe, the nine-headed blood WYRM tried his best to nurture the Crown Prince Jiao. After dozens of years, the power of the Crown Prince Jiao was raised to the middle stage of the universe master level. At that moment, among the ancestors in the ancestral land of the blood WYRM clan, a 6-headed blood WYRM woke up. He was a universe master at the pinnacle of the 9th stage. For the sake of training, the Crown Prince Jiao took the initiative to enter the void space fragment of the Chaos Era. The nine-headed blood WYRM doted on him and didn't stop him. He ordered the 6-headed blood WYRM to be his protector. As for himself, after the Crown Prince Jiao and the 6-headed blood WYRM left, he entered his final sleep. Before this sleep, the 9 blood-colored heads of the 9-headed blood WYRM had all grown out, and he recovered to the pinnacle of the 9th stage of the Desolation Era. He was only one step away from becoming a Desolation Era Supreme. His goal in this last slumber was to break through to the Desolate Supremacy Realm and break through the strongest state in his previous life. Then, he would lead the entire Blood Dragon tribe to the primordial world fragment void and wait for the primordial world to fully descend. The battle was about to begin. The Chaos Era, the Chaos Era, the Chaos Era. It had been several years since the Crown Prince Jiao and the 9-headed Blood WYRM clan left with the elites of the Blood WYRM clan and entered the huge void space crack of the Demon clan. They were heading toward the vast void space fragment of the Chaos Era. After using up all the top-tier cultivation resources he had collected and accumulated, as well as the all-evil origin liquid he had slowly accumulated over the years, and the accumulation he had accumulated over the years from the end of the Chaos Era to the present, the nine-headed Blood WYRM clan finally broke through the Chaos Era. He successfully broke through and became a Desolation Master. Roar! Roar! At that moment, in the secret region in the ancestral land of the Blood WYRM clan, the vast blood-colored cloud suddenly surged violently. 9 cheers filled with endless joy came from the blood-colored cloud. The 9 heads of the 9-headed Blood WYRM clan roared toward the sky at the same time. At that moment, he was too excited. He had been severely injured since the end of the Chaos Era. 6 of his 9 heads had exploded, and only 3 were left. Now, after countless years, he had finally recovered from his injuries. He had even broken through the peak state of the past and finally achieved his wish of becoming a Desolation Era Supreme. Jiao, wait for me. I will join you soon. In this life, I will definitely help you become a Supreme Desolation Master. After a long time, the 9-headed Blood WYRM clan's excitement gradually calmed down. As he muttered softly, he subconsciously sensed the divine sense imprint that he had left in the Crown Prince Jiao's body. Screech! How dare you! You merely used a secret technique to become a Desolation Master and deceived the world. How dare you kill my Jiao? I will fight you to the death. Chapter 4688. Because the imprint didn't have any offensive power and was extremely weak, the information it could transmit was limited. Only the 9-headed Blood Dragon, who had a supreme bloodline relationship with Crown Prince Flood Dragon, could sense it. That was why even remote Ancient Supreme couldn't sense its existence when he killed Crown Prince Flood Dragon. The reason was that the 9-headed Blood Dragon valued his only direct bloodline descendant too much. Even if he died accidentally, the 9-headed Blood Dragon wouldn't let it go easily. No matter what, he had to know who the attacker was. Only then could he wait for an opportunity to report. This was originally a trick he had done on the spur of the moment. Who would have thought that the trick he had left behind would come true when he had just broken through and awakened in an unprecedentedly powerful state? At this moment, the 9-headed Blood Dragon was furious. As he roared, the secret region in the ancestral land of the Blood Dragon clan trembled violently. Such an accident was unprecedented for the Blood Dragon clan. Outside the secret region, within the vast ancestral land of the Bloodhorn Dragon clan, all the members of the Bloodhorn Dragon clan were frightened out of their wits, including the leader of the Bloodhorn Dragon clan, whose power had skyrocketed over the past few years. Now, he had just broken through to become a Universe Master, and he was prostrating himself on the ground. He was trembling. In fact, even the ancestors of the Bloodhorn Dragon clan who were originally still in deep slumber in the depths of the ancestral land of the Bloodhorn Dragon clan woke up one after another due to this earth-shattering commotion. There were quite a few of them. They had accumulated from the end of the Ancient Era until now, and there were thousands of them, all of whom were Universe Knights or above. Among them, there were even a dozen ancient blood dragons who had just become powerful beings of the Ancient Era. They belonged to the same era as the 6-headed blood dragon and had been in deep sleep since the Ancient Era after the end of the Ancient Era. Originally, it wasn't time for them to wake up. They were going to sleep for a while and wake up at the last moment before the end of the Ancient Era. But now, because of the roaring of the 9-headed blood dragon, they were all disturbed and woke up in advance. Congratulations, Ancestor, for becoming a Desolate Master. Very soon, the ancestors of the Blood WYRM clan who had just woken up discovered that their 9-headed Blood WYRM was now a powerful primordial supreme. Overjoyed, they all knelt on one knee and congratulated him. There's nothing to congratulate me for. I'm not in a good mood right now. The 6 blood flood dragons have betrayed me, and Jiao has been killed. Amidst the rolling blood clouds, the 9-headed blood flood dragon, which had gradually calmed down, emitted the voice of his divine sense, revealing an endless chill. Pass down the order. The Blood Flood Dragon clan will migrate and enter the void fragment of the great desolate world in advance. I'll take my leave first. I'll tear open the void and leave. All of you, take all of the Blood WYRM tribe members and migrate afterward. Also, after this sovereign leaves, remember to inform the Old Rock and the Old Lion. Tell them that the vanguard army of the Blood WYRM clan has most likely been completely annihilated. The vanguard army of the Azure Rock clan and the Battle Lion clan is most likely the same. It's up to them to decide. Roar! Hiss! After he finished his last sentence, the 9-headed blood dragon raised his head and roared again. The majestic blood cloud in the deepest part of the Blood Dragon clan's ancestral land suddenly shrank rapidly. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a faint blood-colored light that directly tore through the void. It disappeared just like that. This news was too shocking. All the patriarchs of the various eras in the ancestral land of the Blood Dragon clan were shocked. However, no one dared to disobey the orders of the nine-headed Blood Dragon clan. Very soon, the patriarchs of the various eras who had awakened in advance all moved out. Some went to the Azure Rock clan, some went to the Battle Lion clan, but most of them stayed behind. Come, order the entire clan to pack up immediately and prepare to rush to the void fragment of the great desolate world. The ancestral land of the Azure Rock clan. It was said that the Azure Rock clan was the descendant of the Azure Sky Rock of the ancient era, and the bloodline ancestor of the Azure Sky Rock was the legendary Kuan Pang of the primordial era. The Kuan Pang was the same as the Netherworld Emperor. In the primordial era, it was a supreme existence that was comparable to the Golden Divine Dragon and the Void Tortoise. Back then, the nine-headed Blood Dragon, the Cyan Sky Rock, and the blood-devouring War Lion all joined the camp of the Green Eye of the Heavenly Way of Untainted Land at the end of the Great War in the Untainted Land. They participated in the destructive war that destroyed the Untainted Land. At that time, among the three old fellows, the nine-headed Blood Dragon clan and the Azure Sky Rock were already at the great perfection of the primordial era's rank 9, which was equivalent to the half-step desolate supremacy. The blood-devouring Battle Lion was even stronger. Although it was only at the rank 1 primordial era, with the support of the 9 changes of the Berserk Lion bloodline ability, it had the terrifying battle strength of a rank 1 desolate supremacy. However, after that battle, the three old fellows were all seriously injured. After the great desolate world collapsed, they left their bloodlines and multiplied into the Blood Dragon clan, the Azure Rock clan, and the Battle Lion clan. The three old fellows were hibernating in the depths of the ancestral land of the three clans, recovering from their injuries. Now, countless years had passed. The great desolate era that had disappeared in the long river of history was about to descend again in the form of an apocalyptic world. The nine-headed Blood Dragon clan was not the only one who knew this. The Azure Sky Rock and the blood-devouring Battle Lion were also well aware of this. As powerful generals in the Primeval Heaven's Eye camp, they still had certain channels to obtain news from the Primeval Heaven's Eye and knew some of the arrangements made. Now the nine-headed Blood Dragon clan had already recovered and advanced further, stepping into the unprecedented desolate supremacy realm. The Azure Sky Rock and the blood-devouring Battle Lion, who were originally at the same cultivation level as him and had even suffered lighter injuries, were obviously close to breaking through. At this time, a primordial era ancestor of the Blood Dragon clan came to the ancestral land of the Azure Rock clan. Under the guidance of the Azure Rock clan ancestor, he entered the deepest secret realm of the ancestral land of the Azure Rock clan. Soon the Azure Sky Rock knew everything about the Blood Dragon clan, as well as the general situation that happened in the void of the great desolate world fragment. Screech! An earth-shattering screech sounded from the secret realm of the Azure Rock clan's ancestral land. Following that, a powerful oppressive aura that belonged to a primordial supreme swept out from the secret realm. Congratulations, ancestor! You've finally broken through! At this moment, the Azure Rock clan ancestor was stunned for a moment. Then, ecstasy appeared on his face. He immediately prostrated himself on the ground and congratulated loudly. Whoosh whoosh! There was no response, but the sound of wings flapping faintly came from the depths of the secret realm of the Azure Rock clan's ancestral land. The entire void that was shrouded in green fog trembled slightly. Then, countless arrows in the shape of feathers appeared from the void. They were like green goose feathers fluttering in the wind, covering the sky and the sun, covering a part of the sky. This was one of the most powerful killing techniques of the Azure Sky Rock lineage. Demonic rock sealing the heavens. Chapter 4689. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Countless arrows that were in the shape of feathers appeared in space, and they fluttered like azure-colored snow that blotted out the sky and covered the heavens and the earth. The voice of the Azure Sky Rock's divine sense sounded out at this moment, and it revealed boundless ghastly coldness. The three clans are united. The old Blood Dragon went to that void alone. I can't sit by and do nothing, so I'll rush there immediately. Pass down the order. The Azure Sky Rock clan will also migrate and enter that void fragment in advance. After I leave, wake up all the slumbering elders in the ancestral land. Then, take all the clansmen and set off with the Blood Dragon and Battle Lion clans to migrate. Roar! Screech! After the last sentence, the overwhelming green feathers that shrouded the sky suddenly condensed into a green light. In the blink of an eye, it tore through the void and disappeared. The Battle Lion clan was naturally warlike, and their bloodline was extremely powerful. Among the clans of the Second Universe Federation, they were ranked 3rd. Even the other clans of the top 10 clans were not willing to provoke them easily, because all the clansmen of this clan were too warlike. They would either not fight, or fight to the death, and they would only stop when one side fell. It was said that the bloodline ancestor of the Battle Lion clan was the bloodthirsty lion of the primordial era. Its 9 changes of the wild lion was extremely powerful, and it had once shown in the Battle of the Primordial Era. At the end of the Battle of the Primordial Era, the bloodline ancestor of the Battle Lion clan, the bloodthirsty lion, belonged to the camp of the Heavenly Eye. He had once fought side by side with the 9-headed blood dragon and the Azure Sky Rock. After that battle, the 3 of them were seriously injured at the same time and went into hibernation to recover from their injuries. At that time, the bloodthirsty lion of the Battle Lion clan was the weakest among the 3 of them. The 9-headed blood dragon and the Azure Sky Rock were already at the first level of the primordial era, half-step desolate masters. The bloodthirsty lion was only at the first level of the primordial era. But in fact, his real combat power was the strongest among the 3 of them. Even the 9-headed blood dragon and the Azure Sky Rock were not as good as him. They could only admit defeat. This was because the bloodline of the blood-devouring ferocious lion came from the blood-slaughtering ferocious lion that had already shaken the Great Desolate World during the early days of the Great Desolate Era. The bloodthirst lion was the same as the bloodthirst serpent dragon and the Kuan Pang. It was one of the most powerful existences in the primordial era. It was on the same level as the void tortoise, the golden divine dragon, and the primordial yaksha. The bloodlust lion had an extremely powerful bloodline ability that was no weaker than the primordial yaksha's most powerful ability, the heaven-falling bow. That was the 9 berserk lion transformations. With each transformation, his body would expand by 10 times, and his cultivation would increase by 1 level. With the 9 transformations, one's cultivation base would be raised by a whole realm. During the Desolate Era, even though the Bloodslaughter Lion was merely a 3rd-order Venerable Realm expert, after executing the 9 changes of the Berserk Lion, even the Void Tortoise, Golden Divine Dragon, and Desolate Ancient Yaksha were only half of a 9th-order Venerable Realm expert. Even Bu Tiandao was extremely fearful of him. Once he fought with him, unless he used a powerful ability like the Heaven-Falling Bow, he was almost no match for him. However, the Blood Slaughter Lion was the same as the Bloodthirst Serpent Dragon and the Kuan Pang. Before the end of the Great War of the Desolate Era, he had disappeared. No one knew whether he was alive or dead. In fact, except for the Void Tortoise, when the Great War of the Desolate Era first broke out, almost all the powerful desolate supremacies of both sides were in the same situation. All of them had disappeared, and there was no news of them. Perhaps they had gone into hibernation, healing their injuries, or breaking through. Perhaps they had really fallen. At this moment, in the ancestral land of the Battle Lion tribe, one of the top 10 tribes in the second universe, a Blood Flood Dragon tribe ancestor had just arrived. The Blood Flood Dragon tribe ancestor had explained everything that had happened to the Blood Flood Dragon tribe, as well as the general situation of the unexpected changes in the void fragment of the Desolate Era to the Battle Lion tribe patriarch. The 2 of them had just entered the deepest part of the Battle Lion tribe's ancestral land when they stopped outside a secret realm with a violent aura. The secret realm in front of them was the place where the Battle Lion tribe ancestor, the blood-devouring lion, was recuperating in seclusion, since the Blood Flood Dragon tribe and the Green Rock tribe have decided to enter the void fragment of the Desolate Era in advance. After a short silence, the blood-devouring lion's divine sense voice came from the secret realm in front of them, revealing an endless chilling intent. Our 3 tribes were originally of the same breath and branch. The old Blood Flood Dragon tribe and the old Rock tribe ancestor went to that void. Now that they have broken through to the Desolate Supremacy realm, even if they encounter a powerful existence, they will be fine. Pass down the order. The Battle Lion tribe will also migrate and enter the void fragment of the Desolate Era in advance. Wake up all the slumbering elders in the ancestral land, then lead all the tribe members and set off together with the Blood Flood Dragon tribe and the Green Rock tribe to migrate. But this venerable one will continue to stay here. Now, although this venerable one has recovered to the peak of the Desolate Era's first level of cultivation, even so, under the use of the 9 changes of the Wild Lion bloodline ability, the strongest combat strength that can be achieved is only the first level of the Desolate Supremacy. Although the peak combat strength of the old Blood Flood Dragon and the old Rock is also the same, this venerable one is different from them. They have already stepped into the Desolate Supremacy realm. Even if they break through 1 level of cultivation, it will take a long time before they can break through again. However, this venerable one's true cultivation realm is only the first level of the Almighty Realm, and the space for a breakthrough is even greater. Taking advantage of the fact that the Desolate Era has yet to descend, this venerable one must seize the time and try to break through a few levels as much as possible. Only then will my combat strength be stronger. Go when you see the old blood flood dragon and the old rock. Convey this venerable one's intentions. Tell them that this venerable one will descend at the critical moment. Roar! Screech! At the end of his speech, a shocking roar and violent howl came from the secret realm in front of him. Then, it returned to silence, and there was no more movement. The Blood Flood Dragon tribe's almighty ancestor and the War Lion tribe's patriarch exchanged glances. They did not dare to continue to disturb him. Soon, they left the War Lion tribe's ancestral land. For a time, the Blood Flood Dragon tribe, the Green Rock tribe, and the War Lion tribe in the second universe mobilized and hurriedly prepared. Soon, the three tribes would migrate and leave. Desolate world fragment void. Hiss. Hiss. In an incomparably quiet universe void, a crisp sound of ripping silk suddenly rang out. Two huge black cracks were torn open in the sky, one on the left and one on the right. Two figures walked out of it one after another. The cultivation aura emitted from their bodies was actually the terrifying first level of the desolate supremacy. Chapter 4690. In the forbidden land of Rising Sun, in the black magic hall that stood at the peak of the giant mountain in Yi Xian's cave-dwelling star. At this moment, Yi Xian was sitting cross-legged on the throne in the magic hall, closing his eyes to regulate his breathing. The expedition of the 3 legions of the magic hall had ended 2 months ago, and all 3 legions had returned. Now, whether it was the 6-headed blood dragon, the green ox, Zhao Dong, Qian Nan, Sun Shi, Li Bei, or the others, in short, almost all of the high-ranking commanders of the 4 legions under the command of the magic hall were in seclusion. Over the past 2 months, the entire vast and boundless fragment of the untainted land seemed to be extremely quiet. Previously, there were battles of various sizes that broke out, and the situation that seemed to be noisy temporarily disappeared. After all, there was originally no supreme master of the ancients here, at least he had not officially appeared. But now, the master of the magic hall had appeared out of nowhere, and was extremely domineering. Moreover, his old subordinates, the Green Ox and the entire Starry Sky nomadic army, had more or less been bullied by various large clans and forces in the past 10 years. For this matter, the 3 legions of the magic hall were deployed, and with an iron-blooded momentum, they destroyed the headquarters of the Blood Dragon, the Green Rock, and the Battle Lion clans in the blink of an eye. Under such circumstances, the other clans and forces naturally did not dare to make any moves. Recently, they had all quieted down, and were on tenterhooks. Yi Xian did not pay attention to this. In the past 2 months, he had been in seclusion in the magic hall, but it was not to break through his cultivation, but to consolidate his state of mind. Now, as he opened his eyes, some of the hidden dangers of his unstable state of mind due to his previous breakthroughs had been completely smoothed out. In other words, the opportunity for another breakthrough had arrived. Rumble! With a thought, Yi Xian immediately waved his hand and summoned the Shenong cauldron, which hung behind the giant peak. Then, with a flash of his body, he immediately stepped into the mouth of the cauldron, which was filled with 9-colored fog. From there, he entered the space inside the cauldron and sat cross-legged above the central region volcano in the space inside the cauldron. Whoosh! Swish, swish, swish. As he waved his hand, a large number of faint sounds of breaking through the air rang out. In an instant, fine rays of light shot out and hovered in front of him. They were the cultivation resources that he took out from the undying world in his body for this breakthrough. This included the all-evil origin elixir, the 9-colored divine medicine, and so on. There was even a canopy of chaos great medicines that spanned over 10,000 feet. After preparing everything, Yi Xian immediately activated the power of the Shenong Cauldron's domain, compressing all the cultivation resources into the size of an infant fist. With a wave of his hand, Yi Xian swallowed the fist-sized bead and quickly dissolved it. Walala! The energy ball, which had been compressed to the size of a nascent soul's fist, melted as soon as it entered his mouth. At the same time, the sound of rattling chains rang out from Yi Xian's body. All the resources he had swallowed earlier had transformed into a mighty river of energy. Everything was a walk in the park. Yi Xian activated the large river of energy that had just formed in his body and continuously circulated it through his 100 meridians with all his might. This time, the breakthrough was slightly hindered. It took him a full 6 days to completely refine the huge river of energy that had formed in his meridians. As the energy river circulated through his meridians again and again, it finally disappeared completely and merged with his soul and physical body. Yi Xian had only gathered his strength to launch a single attack before the shackles snapped. The anticipated system notification soon sounded in his mind. Ding! Congratulations to host for breaking through the realm of the ancient Dongshu mantra. Current realm. Second Order Primordial God. Ding! Congratulations to host for breaking through the realm of the ancient Dongshu mantra. Current realm. Second Order Primordial God. Second Order Primordial God. Previously, his original body's strength had been at the First Order Primordial God level. After activating the ancient demon ape bloodline in his body, he could instantly rise to the Second Order Primordial God level. If he were to use the 9 transformations of the demonic ape and reach the 9th transformation, his combat power would immediately soar to the Second Order Primordial God level. If he were to take into account the 1-level bonus from the boundless energy in his body, his combat power would be comparable to a 3rd Order Desolate Master. But now, with his breakthrough, Yi Xian would instantly possess the strength of a 3rd Order Primordial God level after activating the ancient demon ape bloodline in his body. If he were to use the 9 transformations of the demonic ape bloodline and enter the 9th transformation, his combat power would be comparable to a 3rd Order Universe Supreme. In addition, if he were to take into account the 1-level bonus from the boundless energy in his body that was 60 million miles long, his combat power would increase by 1 level. Currently, the strongest battle strength that he could display would reach an unprecedented level that was comparable to a 4th-ranked Desolate Sovereign. This was already the middle stage of the Supreme Being level. In other words, Yi Xian could easily suppress anyone below the middle stage of the Supreme Being level by himself. However, the Supreme Being level was not to be underestimated. Suppressing him was one thing, but seriously injuring him was another. As for completely killing him, it was almost impossible to use conventional means in a big battle. It was only possible if he were to use a supreme ability like the Fallen Sky Bow. In fact, Yi Xian still had the Blood Sea Secret Technique. Once he activated the Blood Sea Secret Technique's clone power, he would be able to condense 3 Blood Sea clones in an instant. All of them possessed terrifying battle prowess comparable to a Desolate Sovereign of the 4th step. In the situation of 3 against 1, even if he were to encounter a 5th Order or 6th Order Primordial God, he could guarantee his victory. If he were to use a supreme ability like the Fallen Sky Bow, even a 4th Order Desolate Master would be killed by 1 arrow if he was caught off guard. His strongest battle prowess has already reached the 4th Order of the Desolate Ancient Sovereign, and he can have at most 3 Blood Sea clones with the same battle prowess. A bright light flashed in Yi Xian's eyes. At this moment, Yi Xian's emotions were unprecedentedly agitated. After calming down slightly, he took a deep breath and once again muttered softly. A 2nd Order Almighty is the great desolate ancient realm that one must reach before consuming a level 29 Desolate Sovereign Treasure Pill. To be able to reach the 9th Order perfection, there are only 7 small breakthroughs left. It seems that the refining of the level 29 Desolate Master Supreme Pill can no longer be delayed. In the near future, this matter will have to be implemented. Speaking of this, his eyes flashed again, but he no longer spoke and fell into deep thought. He had already successfully deduced the perfect pill formula for the level 29 Desolate Master Supreme Pill. Now, the devouring system in his body was deducing the perfect pill formula for the level 30 Heavenly Path Treasure Pill. In fact, he had already accumulated 10 of the Supreme Expert's blood essence that was used to refine the level 29 Desolate Sovereign Treasure Pellet. 10 blood essences. With Yi Xian's current attainments in alchemy, according to his deduction, he could probably refine 6 to 7 Desolate Master Supreme Pills. The reason why he had not started refining was because he was not satisfied with this amount. After all, this was the Desolate Master Supreme Pill, which required the blood essences as the main raw material to refine. Once the furnace was opened, at least 5 blood essences were needed. Every time he added 1 blood essence, he would be able to refine 1 more Desolate Supreme Treasure Pill. Chapter 4691. Forget it, it's only 6 or 7, it's still too little. After hesitating for a while, Yi Xian finally shook his head, and a wry smile appeared on his face. Fortunately, there are still 7 small stages of breakthrough before reaching the 9th Order Great Perfection, so it's not like there's no time. I'll go back and collect some blood essence before making a decision. After saying that, he threw this matter to the back of his mind and stopped thinking about it for the time being. Just as he was about to get up, Yi Xian seemed to have suddenly sensed something, and his expression suddenly changed slightly. He turned his head and subconsciously looked into the distance. A murmur came out of his mouth like he was sleep-talking. Supreme Ancient Desolation? There are actually 2 Supreme Ancient Desolations. I wonder who is descending. Xiao. In the next moment, With a faint sound of breaking air, Yi Xian's figure disappeared in the blink of an eye. Before disappearing, although he was only in the form of a violent ape, the 9 devil ape transformation in his body had been activated and maintained in the state of the 9th transformation. Therefore, at this moment, the cultivation aura emitted from his body was at the peak of the 3rd order Great Desolation realm. Xiao! Whoosh! In the void, an incomparably sharp sound of breaking through the air rang out. 2 rays of light displayed extreme speed, streaking across the void of this piece of untainted land fragment. Their speed was extremely fast, and the aura of cultivation that permeated the light was incomparably terrifying. It was clearly from the desolate antiquity. 1st order Great Perfection realm. One of the 2 streaks of light was blood red, while the other was cyan. They were none other than the 1st-generation ancestor of the Blood Flood Dragon clan, the 9-headed Blood Flood Dragon clan, and the 1st-generation ancestor of the Green Rock clan, the Azure Sky Rock clan. The previous battle of the Magic Hall had already ended 2 months ago. Although they had only arrived now, in fact, they had not delayed on the way. After receiving the news, they had rushed over at full speed. After all, when Crown Prince Jiao was killed, it would take time for the divine consciousness that was left in his body to transmit a message across the barriers of space and reach the secret realm of the Blood Wyrm clan's ancestral land in the 2nd universe. Moreover, no one knew how long it took. It took a full 1.5 months. After that, although the 9-headed Blood Dragon and the Azure Sky Rock who received the news rushed over as soon as possible, even they could not arrive immediately after crossing such a long distance in the void. Moreover, they were not in the same void. Half a month was also spent on the journey. Because of this, after the 9-headed Blood Dragon and the Cyan Sky Rock arrived at the void fragment of the untainted world, they did not delay at all. The 9-headed Blood Dragon used the bloodline aura in its body to sense the location and determine the specific location of the Crown Prince Jiao's death. After giving up on the coordinates, the 2 of them immediately rushed over to the forbidden land of Rising Sunday. This time, the 9-headed Blood Dragon and the Cyan Sky Rock had come in anger. In addition, since the 2 of them were seriously injured at the end of the distant untainted world, they had been hiding in the deepest secret realms of their respective clans' ancestral lands and had never appeared outside. Over the endless years, they had gritted their teeth and tried their best to recover. They had long been bored out of their wits. However, when the 2 of them recovered from their injuries and made a breakthrough in their cultivation, reaching the 1st order remote ancient supreme realm that they had never reached before, suddenly came the news that Crown Prince Jiao was killed. The Blood Wyrm, Cyan Rock, and Battle Lion clans entered this untainted world and shattered it. The news that all the vanguard forces in this void had been captured. Under the fury in his heart, all the grievances and suffocation that had accumulated over the years in seclusion and recuperation seemed to have found a way to vent in an instant. It was as if a dam had burst open, and all the grievances and suffocation instantly gushed out. At this moment, as the 2 of them flew toward the forbidden land of Rising Sun at extreme speed. Along the way, countless powerhouses from all sides were alarmed in the forbidden land of stars and the remnant starfields, as well as the headquarters of the major clans and forces in the world. After a short period of silence, the overwhelming exclamations resounded through the entire void. Immediately afterward, countless figures gathered from all directions, not daring to get too close. There was no way to catch up at all. Their speed could not be compared. Although these experts could only follow behind the 9-headed Blood Dragon and Azure Sky Rock from afar, they did not disperse. Instead, more and more of them gathered, and gradually, they almost covered the sky and earth as they followed them towards the forbidden land of Rising Sun. At this moment, they all understood what was going on. This was the revenge of the ancestors of the Blood Wyrm clan and Cyan Rock clan. Perhaps soon, the ancestor of the Battle Lion clan would also come. Even in front of them, there were already 2 powerful remote ancient supremes. Once they arrived at the forbidden land of Rising Sun, these 2 desolate supremes would definitely engage in a shocking battle with the mysterious master of the Magic Hall. The result was hard to predict, but there was no doubt that this untainted world fragment void was definitely going to change again. Half a day later, outside the forbidden land of Rising Sun, whoosh! With a faint air-breaking sound, a figure rushed out of the forbidden land of Rising Sunday. He was alone, but his speed was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, he had already arrived at the void hundreds of millions of miles away from the forbidden land of Rising Sunday. It was Yi Xian in the form of a violent ape. At this moment, hundreds of millions of miles away, there were 2 streaks of light, one red and one green, shooting toward him from the left and right at an extremely fast speed. screech, roar. In the distance, a rock's cry and a WYRM's roar sounded at the same time. After arriving here and seeing the figure of the violent ape, the cyan rock and the nine-headed blood WYRM attacked immediately. A large amount of green mist gushed out of the cyan rock's body, and the wind and clouds rolled, covering a corner of the void, trapping the entire battlefield. The sound of flapping wings filled the sky, and the entire void that was shrouded in green mist began to tremble slightly. Then, countless arrows in the shape of feathers appeared from the void. They were like green goose feathers floating in the air, covering the sky and the sun, covering a part of the sky. In the blink of an eye, the rules of the void of this battlefield seemed to be affected by something. It was beneficial to the cyan rock, causing its aura to soar by a large margin, while the power of the others was suppressed. At the same time, in another direction, the nine-headed blood WYRM, who was only about 10,000 feet tall, threw a punch as it stretched out its claws. Then, an energy blood WYRM that was more than 10,000 times larger and connected the sky to the earth roared out, shaking the heavens and the earth. His furious roar caused even a corner of the void to collapse from the tremors. Roar! Roar! Although this energy blood WYRM was the same size as the nine-headed blood WYRM, it also had 9 ferocious WYRM heads. Each of them spat out fire, water, and smoke. It also covered a small area of the void, covering the entire body of the violent ape. These were 2 extremely powerful bloodline abilities. Just like the bloodline ability of the Battle Lion clan, which originated from the Blood Slaughter Lion clan, the 9 changes of the Wild Lion, it belonged to the Cyan Rock clan and the Blood WYRM clan. The innate ability of the Cyan Rock lineage. Demonic rock sealing the heavens. Chapter 4692. Screech. Roar. Along with the earth-shattering screech and roar, this vast corner of the void was shaken. The 2 supreme masters of the ancients attacked at the same time, and the scene was too shocking. In this fragment of the void, no one had seen such a shocking scene for a very long time. On the left side, the azure sky rock was billions of feet long, and a large amount of green mist gushed out of its body. The wind and clouds rolled and covered this corner of the void, trapping the entire battlefield. The soul-stirring sound of flapping wings filled the sky, and the entire void that was shrouded in green mist trembled slightly. Countless arrows in the shape of feathers appeared from the void. They were like green goose feathers drifting in the air, blotting out the sun and covering a part of the firmament. On the right side, the nine-headed blood dragon, who was only 10,000 feet long, punched out as it stretched out its claws. It seemed to be very simple, but it was the full blow of the supreme master of the ancients. As he made his move, an energy blood dragon that was more than 10,000 times larger and connected the sky to the earth roared out. Even a corner of the void collapsed due to its earth-shattering roar. Demonic rock seals the sky. Demonic blood dragon fist. At this moment, the strongest bloodline divine ability of the Azure Rock clan and Bloodworm clan were executed at the same time, and they attacked the Starsky ferocious ape from the left and right respectively. Yi Xian had seen these 2 bloodline powers. Back then, when he fought with the Taoists of the Blood Flood Dragon and Azure Rock clans, he'd felt the powerful might of these 2 bloodline abilities. Unfortunately, although they were strong, they weren't affected by Yi Xian at all. Now, although the same bloodline power was displayed by the Supreme Master of the Ancients, it was far more powerful than when the Taoists of the 2 clans used it. But at the same time, Yi Xian was no longer the Yi Xian of the past. At this moment, although he was facing 2 powerful Supreme Masters of the Ancients at the same time, he was not surprised at all. Both the nine-headed blood dragon and the azure sky rock were only at the first order of the Ancients. Although his realm had stabilized, he had only just entered this realm. But it was different for Yi Xian. With the 9th transformation of the 9 Devil Ape Transformations bloodline ability, his battle prowess had reached the 3rd order Venerable Huang realm. And this was without taking into account the 60 million mile-long body's boundless energy and blood, which boosted his battle prowess by 1 level. If Yi Xian withdrew the Blood Sea secret technique and revealed his 60 million li-long true body, his battle prowess would rise to the 4th order Venerable Desolate realm, and he would be even stronger after stepping into the 4th order Venerable Desolate realm. However, that was completely unnecessary. This was because Yi Xian knew very well that even if he possessed the battle strength of a mid-stage 4th order Desolate Venerable, and used the Blood Sea mystic technique to create 3 Blood Sea avatars that possessed the terrifying battle strength of a 4th order Desolate Venerable, he would still not be able to do so. However, in a 3 versus 2 situation, he was still unable to kill the 9-headed blood dragon and the azure sky great rock today. Desolate venerables were not so easy to kill. When one's cultivation reached this level, there were too many life-saving methods. Unless it was a late-stage 7th-order desolate venerable, otherwise, even a mid-stage 7th-order desolate venerable would not be able to kill an early-stage desolate venerable. There was no possibility of killing them. That was why so many primordial supremes and even primordial supremes were only seriously injured instead of dying in the Great War that destroyed the untainted world. That was the reason why so many primordial supremes and even primordial supremes had survived and remained dormant until now. Of course, if Yi Xian really wanted to kill the 9-headed blood dragon and the Azure Sky Great Rock, he could still use the fallen sky bow to do so. However, to use it, he would need to use his full strength. In this way, he only had one chance to attack. Even if he succeeded in killing one opponent, the remaining one would be a huge problem. Instead, it would cause Yi Xian himself to fall into a difficult situation. That would be unwise. Anyway, these two guys could not do anything to him. In the future, there would be opportunities to kill them when they were alone. Therefore, Yi Xian was not in a hurry today. What's more, if he killed the 9-headed blood dragon or the Azure Sky Great Rock in public, the fallen sky bow in his hand would be exposed. This was not what Yi Xian wanted to see. There were two aspects. First, when Yi Xian was in the 3 main planes of the starry sky, Yi Xian had used the fallen sky bow before. Although this was not his unique secret skill, it originated from the desolate ancient Yaksha. However, if Yi Xian used it in public now, it would most likely attract suspicion. He did not want to expose his identity now, so it was best not to do so. Second, as the end of the desolate world approached, those desolate venerables who had been dormant would probably appear more and more. Previously, there was the void giant tortoise. Now, there was the 9-headed blood dragon and the Azure Sky Great Rock. This was evidence. It could be imagined that in the near future, whether it was in this fragment of the desolate world or in the wider primordial world, there would definitely be more and more desolate venerables. With Yi Xian's style of doing things and the huge lineup of the magic hall, whether it was active or passive, Yi Xian would inevitably interact with these powerful desolate venerables in the near future, and even conflict would break out. Under such circumstances, he obviously should not reveal all of his trump cards now. As a supreme killing ability, the fallen sky bow could be used as a trump card and would be used at the most critical moment in the future. But today, the 9-headed blood dragon and the Azure Sky Great Rock had taken the initiative to kill him. This was a serious provocation to the dignity of the magic hall. Although there was no way to kill these two old fellows here for the time being, they could avoid death, but they could not escape punishment. It just so happened that Yi Xian had just broken through once, so he could use these two old fellows as whetstones to practice with. He could quickly integrate the gains from his previous breakthrough into his own body. Since that was the case, then there was no need to use the big-headed black stick again. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, Yi Xian's eyes flashed with a cold light, and he immediately waved his hand. Swish! Boom! With his terrifying strength as a 3rd-stage desolate venerable, he seemed to have casually waved his hand, but in fact, he had fully activated the power in his body. As an invisible majestic force surged out, the green energy feathers that covered the sky and earth from the left side of the void instantly collapsed. He did this to resolve the crisis of the forbidden land of rising sun behind him. Otherwise, if the Azure Sky Great Rock was allowed to attack, the terrifying power of the demonic rock sealing the heavens would definitely sweep in and affect countless stars in the forbidden land of rising Sunday disastrous. Chapter 4693. Bang! The speed of a 3rd-stage desolate venerable was naturally so fast that it made one's hair stand on end. Not to mention the countless experts from various clans and forces who were watching from afar. Even the Azure Sky Rock, who was also a supreme desolate venerable, was caught off guard. It avoided the attack of the violent ape. An earth-shattering bang was heard. The terrifying figure of the Azure Sky Rock, which was hundreds of millions of feet long, seemed to have been hit head-on by a piece of heaven and earth. Its momentum came to an abrupt halt, and after a sudden pause, it immediately flew backwards. This scene was too strange. Everyone who saw it had a strange expression on their faces. On one side was the Azure Sky Rock, which was hundreds of millions of feet long. Although it could not be compared to the terrifying figure of Yi Xian's 9th transformation of 60 million miles long, nor could it be compared to the giant void tortoise, it was still large enough. On the other side, it was only a violent ape of stars that was only about 10 feet tall. When the two figures were compared, it was like the difference between a towering mountain and a speck of dust. However, at this moment, when the two figures came into contact, The violent ape of stars that was as small as a speck of dust seemed to be completely fine. As for the azure sky rock that was as large as a towering mountain, its entire body flew backwards uncontrollably in the blink of an eye. Ow! Yi Xian had used all his strength in this attack. The full-strength attack of a third-stage Desolate Venerable was not that easy to bear. The azure sky rock opened its mouth and spat out an arrow of blood. It sprinkled in the void, and along the way, there was a rain of blood. At this moment, the entire void was silent. Then, at the end of the void in the distance, among the experts from various clans and forces who were watching the battle, some figures flew out. It was said that the timid would starve to death, and the bold would be stuffed to death. These figures that flew out were obviously the latter. And the reason why they rushed out was none other than to collect the majestic rain of blood that was scattered along the way when the azure sky rock flew backwards. This was the precious blood of the Supreme Desolate Venerable. Whether it was the ferocious beasts of stars or the survivors of the Desolate Venerable, it was a supreme treasure. Similarly, it was the same for the experts from the three main planes of the starry sky. They could be used to refine some elixirs. This was a rare opportunity because normally, not to mention the precious blood of the Desolate Supreme, not even the shadow of the Desolate Supreme could be seen. Even in the first universe's root of all evil star domain, as well as in the abyss of sin in the Chaos World Fragment Void, there would occasionally be ancient Desolate Supremacy remains in remote areas. However, those corpses had either died a long time ago, causing the energy in their precious blood and flesh to dissipate, making it meaningless, or because their bloodline was special. Even if they died, the energy in their bodies would not dissipate, and the pressure would be too strong, making it impossible to receive. Close. How could there be such a good thing like this? There was no need to pay such a high price. As long as they had the courage to charge out, they would be able to grab the supreme blood from the void. Of course, this kind of action was undoubtedly a rude offense to the owner of the blood, the azure sky rock. If it was any other time, no one would dare to do this. Even if it was the blood arrow spat out by the azure sky rock, it was still related to the existence of the Desolate Supreme level. Naturally, it was not something that any ant could touch. But now, the azure sky rock was too busy to care about anything else. The nine-headed blood flood dragon and the ferocious master of the magic hall were even more so. The opportunity could be said to be fleeting. After this village, there would be no such shop. For a moment, there was a trace of chaos in the void. A large number of starry sky experts, ferocious beasts, and survivors rushed out, collecting the Desolate Supreme blood that was scattered in the void at the edge of the battlefield. The scene was extremely lively for a moment. Everyone expected that the azure sky rock would not care about this matter for the time being. They were fighting for opportunities. In reality, this was indeed the case. In just a few breaths of time, the precious blood sprinkling down from the sky was completely absorbed. Although the azure sky great Peng only spat out a single blood arrow, its body was now millions of zhang long. It was like a star, so even if it was only a single blood arrow, even if it was just a blood arrow, it was enough to benefit many starry sky experts. There were at least tens of thousands of such bold fellows, and more or less, all of them had gained something. After a few breaths of time, all the starry sky experts, ferocious beasts, and survivors who had attacked all returned to the crowd, unharmed. When this scene fell into the eyes of the other existences, in an instant, even more people were moved. Those fellows who had missed the opportunity were all breathing rapidly. Their eyes were wide open, and their eyes were faintly emitting a green light. Their faces were filled with expressions. Their expressions were even more expectant. They were all waiting for the next round of blood rain to fall. Roar! At this time, the nine-headed blood flood dragon had already arrived at Yi Xian's side. It raised its head and roared. Its body was only about 3,000 feet long, and it walked forward with a punch. Although its body was not big, in fact, behind the nine-headed blood flood dragon's head, there was a huge blood flood dragon phantom. It was the same as the azure sky rock, hundreds of millions of feet long. As the nine-headed blood flood dragon punched out, the huge blood flood dragon phantom behind its head also opened its 9 heads at the same time, biting towards Yi Xian. At this time, the violent ape was only about 10 feet tall. The dragon scale on the 9 heads of the blood flood dragon phantom was countless times larger than him. The 9 huge flood dragon heads came at the same time. In the blink of an eye, one of them swallowed the violent ape whole. This scene was so shocking that it fell into the eyes of the starry sky experts, ferocious beasts, and survivors who were watching the battle from afar in the surrounding void. Everyone was stunned at the same time. Then, under the great change of expression, countless exclamations instantly surged like a tide. What? The master of the magic hall was swallowed in one gulp? This is the strongest magical power of the Blood Flood Dragon clan, called the Blood Flood Dragon Demonic Fist. With a punch, the power of the bloodline evolves into a terrifying Blood Flood Dragon. The 9 heads control 9 different types of energy, and its power is extremely powerful. Now that the master of the magic hall has been swallowed by one of the heads, it is obviously not good. He must have been ravaged by the corresponding type of energy. Even if he doesn't die, I'm afraid he will be seriously injured. Even if he is only seriously injured, for the significance of this battle, what is the difference between being killed on the spot and being killed on the spot? Don't forget, he is facing 2 powerful primordial sovereigns this time. Although their cultivation is not as good as him, after all, they came from a long time ago. They are ancient existences who have lived from the end of the desolate era to the present. Their foundation is too deep. On the other hand, this violent ape has never been heard of in the distant desolate era. He must be a powerhouse born in the present era. Although his talent is heaven-defying and he has cultivated to the 3rd order desolate realm, his foundation is too weak after all. He doesn't have enough battle experience, so he underestimated the enemy for a while. Chapter 4694. As expected, what bullshit T desolate venerable. This guy is simply a fake. Although he does have the terrifying combat strength of a 3rd order desolate venerable, it was raised by a secret technique. His temperament and experience are not enough to support this level of power. A small mistake and he will lose his footing in an instant. Along with the exclamations in the distant void, the 9-headed blood dragon, who had swallowed the violent ape with the giant flood dragon phantom behind his head, had a complacent look on his face. His divine sense voice sounded out, full of disdain and ridicule. This kind of flashy but impractical existence, not to mention one-on-one, this senior can fight 3 or 5 of him and kill them all. Bam! Just as he finished speaking, an earth-shattering explosion suddenly rang out. Behind the 9-headed blood dragon's head, the blood dragon's phantom, which was the same size as the azure sky rock's body, was like a star. The existence in the middle of the 9 heads, which was the one that swallowed the violent ape in one gulp, suddenly exploded without any warning. This was not the 9-headed blood dragon's main body. It was just a phantom, but it was condensed from the 9-headed blood dragon's bloodline talent. At this moment, one of the 9 heads exploded, instantly affecting the 9-headed blood dragon's body, causing his body to tremble violently. As his expression changed drastically, the middle of the 9 heads of his main body instantly spat out a blood arrow, shooting forward. It shot forward. 9 heads and 9 mouths, no wonder he's so good at bragging. At practically the exact same moment, the ferocious ape that was swallowed earlier walked out in an extremely leisurely manner from the head of this phantom that had exploded apart, and the voice of his divine sense resounded out, revealing undisguised ridicule. Bang! Before the 9-headed blood dragon could react, a cold light flashed in the eyes of the violent ape. He suddenly threw a punch and ruthlessly smashed below one of the 9 heads of the 9-headed blood dragon. A woo! Pfft! A long, mournful howl sounded like a wolf's howl. The 9-headed blood dragon's body, which was only about 10,000 feet long, instantly turned into a bloody light and blasted toward the direction where the azure rock flew backward. Yi Xian had also used all his strength in this punch. Although he did not directly explode the head of the 9-headed blood dragon, a huge bump appeared on its head. As his body flew backward, the 9-headed blood dragon, who was howling miserably, spat out another arrow of blood. All of this had been planned out by Yi Xian. At this moment, as the azure sky rock and the 9-headed blood dragon were sent flying by his punch one after another, these 2 old fellows were already tens of billions of miles away from the edge of the forbidden land of rising sun. A cold light flashed in the eyes of the violent ape. With a shake of its shoulders, it instantly rushed towards that area. That was where he had chosen for the upcoming battle. Due to the distance, no matter how intense the battle was, the aftermath of the battle would not affect the forbidden land of rising Sunday. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Almost at the same time that Yi Xian rushed towards the area where the azure rock and the 9-headed blood dragon were flying backward, in the surrounding void, those starry sky experts, fierce beasts, and survivors who were watching the battle from afar instantly appeared one after another. Then, a figure rushed out. Just now, the 9-headed blood dragon spat out 2 arrows of blood in succession. This was also the precious blood of the desolate venerable. All the starry sky experts, fierce beasts, and survivors who rushed out were here to collect the precious blood. Unfortunately, although the nine-headed blood dragon spat out 2 arrows of blood in succession, in order to make it more convenient for him to use the bloodline ability of the blood dragon demon fist, his current body size was not too big, only about 10,000 feet. His entire body size was only 10,000 feet, and his head was at most a few hundred feet. How big was the blood arrow that he spat out? Not to mention pouring down like rain in the void, if one did not pay attention, it would be difficult to find the scattered traces of the precious blood in such a long distance in such a vast void. At this moment, there were hundreds of thousands of starry sky experts, fierce beasts, and survivors who rushed out. Compared to the number of people who were alarmed when the azure rock spat out a blood arrow and turned into a rain of blood that scattered over a large area of the void, it was nearly 10 times more. This kind of scene could not be described by the words, "too many monks and too little porridge." It was so embarrassing that it made people speechless. In the void, these starry sky experts, fierce beasts, and survivors who rushed out were squeezing their heads in order to compete for the precious blood of the desolate venerable. Their eyes emitted green light, and they quickly fought. In an instant, angry roars and roars sounded like a tide, and there were even some existences who were cursing loudly. The object of their curses was clearly the precious blood of the desolate venerable, who spat out 2 arrows of blood in succession and left in the void. However, it was far inferior to the azure rock. Tian Dupeng's 9-headed blood dragon. Although he was a powerful primordial supreme, he was now entangled with the master of the magic hall. Moreover, he was at a disadvantage, so he had no time to pay attention to this side. In addition, there were so many people talking, so it was difficult to distinguish who was cursing loudly in a short time. Curse. This kind of opportunity was rare. Although he did not have the strength to fight with a 9-headed blood dragon, it was naturally an extremely satisfying thing to curse a powerful primordial supreme in public. It was also not to be missed. Roar! Roar! Screech! At this moment, the azure sky rock and the 9-headed blood dragon, who were sent flying by Yi Xian's punch, were barely able to disperse the majestic power of this punch, and their bodies stabilized in the void. The azure sky rock was fine when he suddenly heard the curses, but the 9-headed blood dragon was so angry that his body trembled. As he raised his head and roared, he almost spat out a mouthful of blood again. At this moment, his entire mind was a little muddled. He did not understand what was going on in this era. He was a powerful desolate venerable who had lived from the end of the desolate era to the current era. He was the dignified ancestor of the blood dragon clan, but now, he was being attacked by a group of ants who were not even at the level of the desolate era. He cursed loudly. And it was not just 1 or 2. Listening to this sound, it was clearly a tide of curses. For the sake of a mouthful of old blood, these guys. Did they all want to die? Roar. Awesome. But this is just the beginning. The real show is yet to come. 2 consecutive punches had sent 2 powerful primordial sovereigns flying. Even for Yi Xian, such a battle record and experience was unprecedented. At this moment, his heart was surging with emotions, and a sense of heroism roared and surged in his chest. As he turned into a ray of light and shot over, he closed in on the azure sky rock and the 9-headed blood dragon that had just stabilized their bodies. The voice of Yi Xian's divine sense sounded again, invisibly enveloping the entire vast and boundless void. Come, come, come. Cut the crap. Let's fight again. 300 rounds. Those 2 punches just now were just a warm-up for me. It's not easy to find 2 tough guys who can take a beating. Today, I must play to my heart's content. Don't be too weak. You must hold on for a while longer. Chapter 4695. Boom! Rumble. Bang! In the void, an earth-shattering roar sounded. The violent ape punched the 9-headed blood serpent's abdomen, sending him flying into the sky. One of the serpent's heads suddenly opened and spat out a mouthful of blood. Although he was a supreme primordial, he was only at the first stage of the supreme primordial realm. Facing a powerful 3rd stage desolate venerable, it was expected that he would be crushed. At this moment, the 9-headed blood serpent's heart was completely broken. Previously, the reason why he decided to rush to this void fragment immediately was partly because his only direct descendant, the Crown Prince Serpent, had been killed, and he was furious. But on the other hand, it was also because after the Crown Prince Serpent was killed, the divine soul mark he left in his body contained some information about the attacker. From that information, the 9-headed blood serpent analyzed that the starry sky violent ape that killed the Crown Prince Serpent was not a supreme primordial at all. Its desolate venerable cultivation was increased by some kind of bloodline secret technique. Therefore, although the starry sky violent ape had the battle strength of a second-stage supreme primordial realm when it killed the crown prince serpent, the nine-headed blood serpent still did not take it seriously. In his opinion, this kind of bloodline secret technique that was used to increase one's cultivation strength had a certain time limit or flaw. For example, the Battle Lion clan's 9 changes of the Wild Lion bloodline ability could increase one's cultivation strength by 9 small stages under the 9th change. But this kind of increase also had a certain time limit. As an ally of the blood-devouring Battle Lion for many years, the 9-headed blood serpent was naturally very clear about this. In this case, even if he was alone, it was enough to deal with the starry sky violent ape, let alone with the help of the azure sky rock. It could be said that before seeing the starry sky violent ape and starting this battle, both the 9-headed blood serpent and the azure sky rock were extremely confident that they could kill the starry sky violent ape in this battle. After all, as long as the time limit of the opponent's bloodline secret technique was over, the starry sky violent ape's cultivation strength would plummet. At most, it would be at the supreme primordial realm. Either one of them could easily kill it. However, reality was often not what one wanted. It was impossible for them to know about the bloodline ability of the war lion race's 9 berserk lion transformations. After Yi Xian changed it into the 9 transformations of the demonic ape, he had already perfectly mended all the flaws in this bloodline ability. The time limit for increasing one's strength only existed in the 9 changes of the berserk lion. This problem did not exist in the 9 changes of the demonic ape. Moreover, none of them had expected that Bao Yuan, who was originally a second-order Venerable Realm expert, would actually break through to the third-order Venerable Realm in a short span of 3 months. In this way, the gap in strength between them and the violent ape was instantly widened. This resulted in the two of them being brutally beaten by the other party even though they had joined hands. They could only defend and did not have the ability to retaliate. Bao Yuan, this sovereign does not believe that the desolate supremacy cultivation you raised using a secret technique can be maintained like this. It must have a certain time limit. Who knows, it might be the next second. Die! Swish! Swish, swish, swish. At this moment, as the 9-headed blood flood dragon was once again blasted flying by Yi Xian's punch and retreated 5 billion kilometers, the azure sky rock that was hundreds of millions of meters in size also fell into a frenzy. It raised its head and let out a violent roar. The voice of its divine sense was filled with unwillingness. At the same time, a large amount of green mist gushed out from its huge body. The wind and clouds rolled, covering a corner of the void, trapping the entire battlefield, covering tens of billions of miles. At this moment, the soul-stirring sound of flapping wings filled the air, and the entire area shrouded in green mist began to tremble slightly. Countless arrows in the shape of feathers appeared from the void. They were like green goose feathers fluttering in the air, covering the sky and the sun. They all blasted toward the violent ape. This kind of scattered attack is useful against existences weaker than you. Unfortunately, this king doesn't care about it at all. Facing the overwhelming green feather phantasms, the violent ape curled its lips. As the voice of divine sense was transmitted, it shook its shoulder, stretched its right arm, and instantly blasted toward the azure rock. When the azure rock used this bloodline ability, the reason why Yi Xian blocked it was because the battlefield at that time was too close to the edge of the rising sun forbidden land. He was a little worried that the residual power of the demonic rock sealing the heavens bloodline ability would affect his subordinates in the rising sun forbidden land. But now, the battlefield of the 3 of them was more than 50 billion miles away from the edge of the rising sun forbidden land. There was no need to worry about this at all. With the strength of the physical body of the violent ape, its cultivation strength was not as good as his azure rocks. He could almost ignore some of the power bombardment. Now, this kind of scattered attack was naturally even more meaningless. Puff. Puff puff puff. And that was indeed the case. At this moment, as the countless green feather phantasms that blotted out the sky and covered the earth shot over, the violent ape completely ignored them. As he swung his fist, it was unknown how many feather phantasms landed on his body. The muffled sound was like raindrops, resounding endlessly. However, the violent ape's figure was not affected at all. To him, these green feather phantasms could not break through his defense at all. They could not even scratch off a piece of his skin. At most, they could only cut off some of his ape hair. Boom! Bam! Uft! Almost in the next moment, the violent ape, who had shot out at an extremely fast speed, had already arrived in front of the great azure sky rock. With a punch, It instantly sent the great azure sky rock flying backwards once again. This attack used all of its strength. The azure rock that was sent flying opened its mouth and spat out another blood arrow. It was like a heavy rain that sprinkled in the void. In the distance, the eyes of the various experts, fierce beasts, and survivors who had just finished snatching the small amount of desolate venerable's blood that was scattered by the 2 blood arrows spat out by the 9-headed blood dragon instantly turned green when they saw this scene. Unfortunately, this bloody battlefield was now enveloped by the endless green energy feathers formed by the demonic rock sealing the heaven's bloodline ability that the azure rock had previously used. It was too dangerous. They didn't dare to approach at all. They could only stay in the distant void and watch as the precious blood rained down from the sky. Their faces were pained as they wrung their wrists and stomped their feet. Huh? Chapter 4696. Roar! Screech! Almost as soon as Yi Xian turned his head, a unicorn's roar and a demon crocodile's roar resounded through the sky, shaking this vast and boundless untainted land fragment void. Then 2 clear and crisp sounds came from the end of the void in front of them on the right. Hiss! Hiss! In an incomparably quiet void of the universe, a crisp sound of ripping silk suddenly came. 2 huge black cracks were torn open in the sky, one on the left and one on the right. 2 figures stepped out of them one after another, and the cultivation aura emitted from their bodies was actually at the terrifying primordial supreme realm. This scene was seen by the experts, the ferocious beasts of the universe, and the survivors of the primordial era on the distant battleships. In an instant, a large wave of gasps was heard. Everyone was dumbfounded, and their minds were buzzing. They were completely frightened. The figures that rushed out of these 2 void cracks were all ferocious beasts of the universe, and they were ancient legendary existences. One was a blood-red unicorn, and the other was a 9-secret demon crocodile. Their bodies were tens of millions of feet long. Although they were not too big and looked smaller than the Cyan Sky Rock, the cultivation aura emitted from their bodies was definitely not something that the Cyan Sky Rock and the 9-headed blood dragon could compare to. These 2 powerful primordial supreme masters were actually at level 3 of the primordial era, which was the same cultivation as the master of the magic hall who was beating the Cyan Sky Rock and the 9-headed blood dragon. In fact, it wasn't just the other people watching from afar. Even Yi Xian had an expression of shock on his face when he saw these 2 fellows appear. He naturally knew these 2 blood-red unicorn and 9-secret demon crocodile. Back in the origin of all evil star area of the first universe, Yi Xian had used the all-evil poison to harm several existences at the other end of the netherworld furnace rune chain, including them. At that time, the 9-headed blood dragon had also been harmed. Because his cultivation was only at the remote antiquity realm, no matter how angry he was, he had no choice but to go to the source of all evil star area. However, the bloody unicorn and the 9 serenities demon crocodile each sent out an energy clone, which descended on the netherworld cauldron's rune chains. At that time, if it wasn't for the headless corpse that had transformed into a corpse lantern tattoo and attached to Yi Xian's left chest releasing a wisp of heat that concealed Yi Xian's figure and aura, he would have suffered a tragic fate. Later on, the bloody unicorn and the 9 gloom demon crocodile's energy clones searched for a while but to no avail. They vented their frustrations in the root of all evil starfield and left. Since then, Yi Xian had never seen them again. Who would have thought that they would suddenly meet again in the void of this fragment of the untainted world? These 2 old guys, like the 9-headed blood dragon and the azure sky rock, were ancient existences that had lived from the distant untainted world to the present. However, when the 9-headed blood dragon and the azure sky rock participated in the untainted world war, it was already the end of the untainted world. The war was almost over. Moreover, at that time, they were only at the late antiquity realm and were not the main battle force of that untainted world war. They didn't even participate in the real core battle. However, the bloody unicorn and the 9 gloom demon crocodile were different. Yi Xian vaguely remembered that there was information related to them in the inherited images of the fallen sky bow and other bloodline abilities. In the images of that untainted world war, he had seen the bloody unicorn in the enemy camp. At that time, it was fighting with the giant golden dragon. As for the 9 gloom demon crocodile, he didn't pay attention to it. However, judging from the attitude of these 2 old guys, the 9 gloom demon crocodile was obviously not weaker than the bloody unicorn. In other words, these 2 were terrifying existences that could be evenly matched with the golden divine dragon. If their cultivation strength was restored to its peak state, they could definitely destroy this entire star field with a thought. After all, the golden divine dragon, the void tortoise, the desolate yaksha, and so on were all existences at the peak of the 9th order of the ancients. These two bloody unicorn and the 9 gloom demon crocodile could fight with existences at the level of the golden divine dragon. If their peak cultivation had not reached the peak of the 9th order of the ancients, they would definitely be desolate masters at the 7th or 8th order of the ancients. Yi Xian definitely could not deal with existences at this level. Even if he only encountered one of them, he could only immediately turn around and flee. Unfortunately, the wounds left by the bloody unicorn and the 9 gloom demon crocodile in that untainted world war had obviously not healed yet. This was what it was supposed to be. Even the void tortoise, which was known for its amazing defensive power, had only recovered to the 7th or 8th order of the Desolate Master when it appeared in the untainted world war. The injuries suffered by the bloody unicorn and the 9 gloom demon crocodile were obviously more serious. It was precisely because of this that the cultivation aura emitted from their bodies was only at the 3rd order of the ancients, which was the peak of the early Desolate Master stage. Since this was the case, for Yi Xian, even if these two powerful ancient existences descended at the same time, he had nothing to fear. However, the bloody unicorn and the 9 gloom demon crocodile had no enmity with him. Even if Yi Xian had used the rune chains of the netherworld furnace to harm them in the source of all evil starfield, these two old guys did not know about it. Therefore, although they didn't know why they'd suddenly descended into this void fragment of the great desolate world, if it wasn't necessary, Yi Xian didn't want to take the initiative to provoke them. Of course, he was not afraid of them, but after all, he had the forbidden land of rising behind him. Now, in this untainted world fragment void, he already had two desolate master opponents, the 9-headed blood dragon and the azure sky rock. There was really no need to make another strong enemy. Unfortunately, although he did not want to provoke the bloody unicorn and the 9 gloom demon crocodile, others obviously did not think so. At this time, as the figure completely descended into this untainted world fragment void, the bloody unicorn and the 9 gloom demon crocodile at the end of the untainted world fragment void in front of the left side of the untainted world fragment void actually turned their heads to look at the place where the battle was taking place. Under the bloody light bursting out of their eyes, two incomparably deep divine sense voices came instantly, revealing an endless murderous aura, instantly enveloping the endless vast void. I accidentally passed by, because I sensed the aura of the battle between the desolate masters. Out of curiosity, I temporarily stopped and descended here. I didn't expect to see such an interesting scene. Those two little guys, I seem to have seen them at the end of the battle. I didn't expect that after countless years, they had also broken through to the desolate master stage, which is very gratifying. Chapter 4697. I just happened to pass by, but I didn't expect to see such an interesting scene. Those two little fellows, I seem to have seen them at the end of that big battle back then. They actually broke through to the desolate supremacy realm. Unfortunately, although their luck is not bad, their fighting strength is really speechless. Two real primordial supremes are being beaten up by a mighty violent ape who has been raised to this level by a secret technique. Forget it, forget it. Since we are on the same side, I will help you today. I will kill this ape. Along the way. Following the arrival, the crimson unicorn and the 9 phantom demon crocodile's voice sounded at this moment, revealing an endless sense of disdain. They did not put Yi Xian in their eyes at all. Even killing him was said to be a matter of convenience. This wasn't just an ordinary level of arrogance. He was relying too much on his seniority, and was even a little brainless. It was as if he'd forgotten that their current cultivation was only at the same level as Yi Xian, who was at the 3rd level of the desolate sovereign. At this moment, with these extremely unfriendly, or even extremely rude voice of the consciousness, the ape's face instantly darkened. Under the flash of the crimson light in his eyes, an extremely strong killing intent burst out from his body. Aren't they just 2 3rd-order desolate masters? As long as he used the power of the Blood Sea secret technique, even if he could not suppress them, it would not be a problem for him to fight evenly with them head-on. In fact, as long as Yi Xian was willing to pay the price and use the Heavenly Fallen Bow and other supreme divine abilities, or the divine Gnome 9-colored flames, he would be able to heavily injure or even kill these two old fellows who relied on their seniority. Of course, if it wasn't absolutely necessary, Yi Xian wouldn't have made such a decision. At his current level, no matter how angry he was, his emotions wouldn't be in chaos. He still had to preserve the trump cards that he should preserve. It's actually Lord Blood Unicorn and Lord Demon Crocodile. At the end of the great battle in the Desolate Era, the two of us were only powerful people in the Desolate Era. Across the distant void, we have seen the two Lords Supreme Grace. At this moment, the 9-headed blood dragon and the azure sky rock, who had been sent flying over 10 billion miles away by Yi Xian's punch, had already stabilized themselves in the void. After calming down the surging qi and blood in their hearts, the two of them subconsciously turned to look at the void behind them. When they saw that the people who suddenly appeared here were actually the Crimson Unicorn and the Nine-Hell Demon Crocodile, the two were stunned at the same time. Then their faces showed excitement, and their voices were instantly heard. "Two lords, please take action. There is something strange about this violent ape. It is only a desolate ancient almighty, but it has used some kind of secret technique to forcefully raise its combat strength to rank 3 desolate sovereign. The crux of the matter is that this secret technique doesn't seem to have a time limit. In addition, the two of us just broke through not too long ago. That's why such an awkward situation has occurred. Fortunately, both of you unexpectedly descended here. This is Bao Yuan's bad luck, and he's bound to perish here today." As these voices were heard, the 9-headed blood dragon and the azure sky rock in the void on the right in front of them all stood up and respectfully bowed to the Crimson Unicorn and the 9-hell demon crocodile at the end of the void on the left. Although they had now stepped into the desolate sovereign realm, they were self-aware. In front of the Crimson Unicorn and the 9-hell demon crocodile, they didn't dare to have the self-esteem of peers. After all, when they were still in the late stage of the desolate era, the Crimson Unicorn and the 9-hell demon crocodile were already generals under the heavenly Dao Qing Yan. Their cultivation strength had reached rank 8 desolate sovereign, and they could fight against the golden divine dragon and the void giant tortoise in the enemy camp. A few of the most powerful existences such as the desolate ancient Yaksha fought head-on. Even if he was suppressed and couldn't gain the slightest advantage, to the extent that he could only parry and was unable to fight back, it was still a head-on battle after all. The same scene, if it were them, even now, they were far from being able to do it. Moreover, although the Crimson Unicorn and the 9-hell demon crocodile had not recovered to the peak of rank 8 desolate sovereign realm, they were at least rank 3 desolate sovereign realm. It was far from what they could compare to. This was a real rank 3 desolate sovereign realm, and it had existed longer than the two of them. It was definitely from the early middle of the desolate era to the current era. Even though they were only at the third order desolate realm, if they were to really fight, taking into account their battle experience and rich foundation, their real battle strength was probably not even the monstrous star violent apes match. Not to mention, although they were only at the third order desolate realm now, the increase in the strength of the others' cultivation was merely a recovery, but if they wanted to increase their strength again, they would have to rely on the accumulation of cultivation bit by bit. The speed of the two was completely different. Maybe the Crimson Unicorn and the 9-hell demon crocodile would soon recover to the peak of rank 8 desolate sovereign realm, while they were still rank 1 desolate sovereigns. All of this together was enough to clear their minds and make them consider themselves as juniors. And this attitude was obviously very useful to the Crimson Unicorn and the 9-hell demon crocodile. The two old guys showed a satisfied smile on their faces. After turning their heads and exchanging a look, their shoulders shook, and they immediately rushed toward the void where the violent ape was standing. At the same time, there was also their divine sense voice full of endless disdain. "Little guy, I'll give you a chance. If you surrender and hand over the secret technique, I'll leave you with a complete corpse. Otherwise, when the two of us join forces, we'll definitely annihilate you in an instant, leaving only a strand of your soul for us to search. The secret technique in your hands won't be able to escape, and will fall into our hands." Seeing this scene, the experts, countless space beasts, and the survivors of the desolate ancient era who were watching the battle from afar all changed their expressions wildly. As they gasped, a series of exclamations filled with endless horror sounded like a tide. "Rise! Hiss!" Two powerful rank 3 desolate sovereigns actually attacked at the same time. This time, the master of the magic hall is clearly going to have a tragic ending. Indeed, there is no suspense. Not to mention that his current rank 3 desolate sovereign cultivation strength is very likely to be like what the 9-headed blood dragon and the azure skyrock said, forcefully raised by some kind of secret technique. Even if that's not the case, with 1 against 1. Under the two of them, the master of the magic hall is definitely not a match for these two ancient existences. That's right, back then, the Crimson Unicorn and the 9-hell demon crocodile were both rank 8 desolate sovereigns. Even if they haven't recovered to their peak cultivation, their battle experience and foundation are still there. Chapter 4698. In the void, as the Crimson Unicorn and the 9-hell demon crocodile rushed towards the violent ape, exclamations sounded like a tide. The starry sky powerhouses, space beasts, and desolation survivors were all shocked. None of them were optimistic about Yi Xian, and they were certain that he would meet a tragic end today. In order to avoid being caught in the crossfire, these powerhouses who were watching the battle from afar quickly retreated amidst the tide of exclamations. They couldn't wait to leave this place as soon as possible. All of this, Yi Xian didn't care at all. At this time, he was still tens of billions of miles away from the Crimson Unicorn and the 9 Hell Demon Crocodile, but he didn't immediately jump up to meet them. Instead, he stood in the void with his hands behind his back, waiting for them to exhaust themselves. When the two old guys were more than 10 billion miles away, Yi Xian activated the power in his body. Whoosh! Whoosh! Almost at the same time, the sound of breaking air rang out, and the violent ape's entire body collapsed, turning into a sea of blood that spread out, covering a large area of the void. Roar! Roar! Screech! Immediately after, from 3 different directions of this vast sea of blood, there were earth-shattering roars and howls. In the boundless sea of blood, there were 3 huge figures that instantly rose from the ground. This time, they were no longer 10 feet tall, but 60 million miles long. Each of them was comparable to a giant star. They were the 3 great demon bodies of the ancient ape demons, but they were not merged together, but separated. In this way, there was no need to worry about the experts from the 3 main starry sky planes noticing the clues and becoming suspicious. One was a body of flesh and blood, which was the violent ape of stars. The second was a skeleton without any flesh and blood, just a purple-gold skeleton, exuding an endless murderous aura, incomparably ferocious. The third was a body of black fog. Although it was also in the shape of a violent ape, its physical body was a cloud of black fog, and even its pair of eyes were only 2 clouds of purple light, looking very strange. In just a few breaths' time, the 3 Blood Sea avatars were formed. The aura emitting from their bodies indicated that they were all third-order venerables. However, his true battle strength was augmented by the boundless chi and blood in his huge body, allowing him to reach the level of a 4th-stage desolate supremacy. This scene fell into the eyes of the Scarlet Unicorn and the 9 Hell Demon Crocodile, causing the 2 old fellows to gasp and cry out involuntarily. Blood Sea secret technique? Wasn't this the bloodline ability of the Blood Sea Demon Lord? Why would it appear on this starry sky violent ape? Furthermore, he has even condensed 3 Blood Sea clones, each of which has the same strength as his original cultivation. This clearly shows that he has long completely comprehended the Blood Sea secret technique and the power of his clones. This is definitely not an incomplete secret technique that has been lost to the outside world, but a complete one. It's simply unimaginable. Not only does he have the Blood Sea secret technique, but he also has a secret technique similar to the 9 changes of the Berserk Lion to increase his strength. What is the origin of this violent ape? These are all the most powerful secret techniques of the Desolate Era. Even if you master one of them, you can enjoy it endlessly after comprehending it thoroughly. This violent ape has 2 of them by himself. The crux of the matter is that these 2 top-rate divine abilities and secret techniques originally didn't belong to the Starsky ferocious ape race, and they were in the possession of extremely formidable existences that weren't inferior to you and me. How could this ferocious ape obtain such important secret techniques from them? Roar! Before the cries of the Scarlet Unicorn and the 9 Hell Demon Crocodile fell, the 3 Blood Sea avatars in the vast sea of blood more than 10 billion miles away had already raised their heads at the same time and let out a shocking roar. Immediately after, the voice of Yi Xian's divine sense resounded throughout the entire space. So what if there are 2 more desolate supremacies? Come, I will fight the 4 of you alone. Under the power of the Blood Sea secret technique, even if it is only 3 against 4, I can still defeat you. Roar! Too arrogant, too domineering. When these 2 voices were heard, the experts, the starry sky beasts, and the survivors of the Desolate Era who were retreating in a hurry immediately stopped retreating as if it was a conditioned reflex. They turned their heads and looked at each other. They were shocked. Immediately after, everyone who finally regained their senses suddenly exclaimed, "What happened? Why is there suddenly such a vast and endless sea of blood?" The Blood Sea secret technique. This is the Blood Sea secret technique. Legend has it that in the distant Desolate Era, there was a powerful Desolate Era Supreme called the Blood Sea Demon Monarch. The Blood Sea secret technique was his strongest ability. It is said that he could change the size of the Blood Sea Demon Monarch as he wished. It was a terrifying sea of blood. It was so small that it could condense into a weak blood light, and no matter how big or small it was, it would not affect one's cultivation strength, and it could change in myriad ways. What's even more heaven-defying is that the Blood Sea secret technique has a layer of doppelganger power. If you comprehend it thoroughly, you can condense 3 Blood Sea doppelgangers in the Blood Sea. Each doppelganger has the same cultivation strength as the original. It's like one splitting into 3. A certain powerful existence's 1 chi into 3 pure one's ability is equally matched. So that's how it is. It seems that the final result of this battle is difficult to predict in an instant. That's right, the Master of the Magic Hall can split into 3 and condense 3 Blood Sea clones, all of which have the terrifying battle strength of a third-order Desolate Era Supreme. And the Blood Unicorn and the 9 Hell Demon Crocodile that came here with a domineering aura are only third-order Desolate Supremacies. Even with the addition of the 9-headed Blood Dragon and the Azure Sky Rock, the 4 of them fighting against the 3 Blood Sea clones of the Master of the Magic Hall, I'm afraid they won't have much of an advantage. Just now, it was a crushing situation, but in an instant, it became an evenly matched situation. All of this is simply like a dream, full of ups and downs, making one's heart surge. Has the Master of the Magic Hall become so powerful? To be able to fight against 4 Desolate Supremacies by himself, this is definitely a heaven-defying rhythm. In this vast and boundless void fragment of the Desolate Era, who can be his opponent? That's not important. For us, the most important thing is that since the battle strength of both sides has reached a roughly equal state, then there's no need to continue escaping. That's right, when the battle strength is equal, both sides will have no time to care about us. This is a chaotic battle between 7 powerful ancient supremacies. Even if we collect a little Desolate Supremacy's blood in the outermost area, it will be enough. Roar! Screech! As waves of exclamations came from all directions, tens of billions of kilometers away, the 9-headed Blood Dragon and the Azure Sky Rock, who were shocked by the scene in front of them, finally regained their senses. Chapter 4699. Roar! Roar! Ruthless! An earth-shattering roar and ferocious howl suddenly rang out. The 9-headed Blood Dragon and the Cyan Sky Rock roared as they charged towards the Blood Sea from the left side of the void. On the right side of the Blood Sea, the Blood Unicorn and the 9-Hell Demon Crocodile were approaching together. Hiss! Whoosh whoosh whoosh! Almost at the same time, the originally vast and boundless sea of blood suddenly divided into 3 parts without any warning. In the center of each sea, there was a Blood Sea avatar. After the 3 seas of blood split apart, they instantly expanded, and in the blink of an eye, they became as vast as before. However, during this process, the 3 blood seas shot out at the same time and rushed in different directions. One wrapped around the Blood Unicorn, and the Blood Sea avatar standing in the center of the Blood Sea was the Black Fog avatar. At this time, as the Blood Sea shot out, the Blood Unicorn that was rushing towards it was sucked into the Blood Sea in the blink of an eye, and an earth-shattering battle began in an instant. Roar! Boom! The Blood Unicorn raised its head and roared, and a huge thunderball rushed out of its mouth. Its speed was extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, it was already in front of the Black Fog avatar's chest. Almost in the next moment, an earth-shattering explosion sounded. The thunderball exploded, and the void shattered inch by inch. The huge body of the Black Fog avatar also spread out at this moment, but it was not injured at all. In less than a tenth of an instant, the Black Fog avatar that had collapsed before the thunderball exploded had already condensed again, and it was beside the Blood Unicorn. At this moment, his right fist turned from a black fog to an incomparably solid state in the blink of an eye, and he punched out fiercely. Bang! A woo! The loud sound was earth-shattering, and the Blood Unicorn's mighty figure was bent over, and an incomparably mournful howl came out of its mouth. It was like a wolf's howl, and it could make anyone who heard it cry. Even though he was an ancient desolate venerable, he had yet to fully recover his strength. He was merely a third-order desolate venerable. Although the Black Fog avatar only had the cultivation level of a Stage 3 desolate supremacy, its true combat strength was comparable to a Stage 4 desolate supremacy. Furthermore, although Yi Xian was not an old monster that had lived from the primordial era to the present, his combat experience was so varied that it made one's hair stand on end. Weaker than Scarlet Unicorn. With all these factors added together, it was completely understandable that the Bloody Unicorn would be in such an awkward situation after just one exchange of blows with the Black Fog doppelganger. However, although he was at a disadvantage after one round, the Scarlet Unicorn was a powerful third-grade desolate sovereign after all. He was not much weaker than the Black Fog avatar. Therefore, in the battle between the two of them, it was inevitable that he would be beaten up, but it was unlikely that he would be heavily injured. As for being killed, that was completely impossible. In another direction, the second Blood Sea shot out and rushed towards the 9 Netherworld Demon Crocodile. The Blood Sea doppelganger that stood in the middle of the Blood Sea was the skeleton doppelganger. There was no flesh on its body, and it was all purple gold bones. It looked even more ferocious and powerful, which made people look askance. Roar! The nine netherworld demon crocodile was extremely violent. Although he felt that the skeleton doppelganger was not to be trifled with, the purple gold body that looked like a mysterious pure gold must be extremely tough. However, he still raised his head and roared. He opened his bloody mouth and directly swallowed the skeleton doppelganger that was coming towards him. He was a desolate supremacy, an ancient desolate supremacy that had lived from the primordial era to the present. He was definitely not an existence like the violent ape, who had obtained a great opportunity in the present era and was lucky enough to reach this step by luck. Even if he were to fight the starry sky violent ape head-on, he would feel that he had lost face, not to mention that this was only one of his 3 blood sea doppelganger. However, the cultivation strength displayed by the other party was not the slightest bit weaker than his own. This made the 9U demon crocodile feel resentful and humiliated, and the anger in his heart had already risen. Facing all of this, the skeleton clone acted as if he did not see it at all, allowing the 9U demon crocodile to open its bloody mouth and bite towards him. At the same time, he also moved his body, his eyes shining with a cold light, his right fist raised high, and also aimed towards 9U. The demon crocodile rushed forward. The two of them collided head-on with each other in an instant. The skeleton doppelganger was 60 million kilometers in size, while the 9 netherworld demon crocodile was 2 times smaller. In this situation, although he had already opened his bloody mouth to the limit and wanted to directly swallow the skeleton doppelganger, he couldn't do it at all. He did it. In the end, he only gnawed on the left thigh of the skeleton doppelganger. There was no meat there, only the purple gold bones that looked like mysterious pure gold, emitting a dense treasure light. Clang! Crack! With a bite, a loud sound like that of metal clashing could be heard, followed by a crisp cracking sound. The left thigh of the skeleton doppelganger was not damaged at all. Not a single bite mark was left, but 3 of the 9 netherworld demon crocodile's ferocious teeth were broken in an instant. A woo! The 9 netherworld demon crocodile raised his head and let out a mournful howl. He had only lost 3 big teeth, and although it was not a serious injury, it was not even a light injury. However, the heart-wrenching pain was truly intoxicating and indescribable. Along with the miserable howl, the 9 netherworld demon crocodile spat out a mouthful of blood. It was not an internal injury to his internal organs, but the blood that flowed out of his mouth because of the 3 broken teeth. However, to the experts, space beasts, and survivors of the primordial era who were watching the battle from afar, there was no difference at all. The blood that flowed out of the desolate sovereign's teeth was also the blood of the desolate sovereign. Moreover, this 9 netherworld demon crocodile was a 3rd-stage desolate sovereign. Its cultivation strength was far superior to the 9-headed blood dragon and the cyan sky rock. The power and medicinal effect of its blood were naturally the same. At this moment, all the spectators in the distance were breathing rapidly. Their eyes shone with a green light. They almost couldn't hold back and rushed down, wanting to collect the blood as soon as possible. But in the end, reason prevailed over impulse, and no one rushed out. Everyone, whether it was the masters of the starry sky from the 3 main planes of the starry sky, or those who originally lived in this fragment of the untainted world, the space beasts and the survivors of the primordial era all sighed regretfully. Bang! Almost in the next moment, before the 9 netherworld demon crocodile's miserable howl because of the 3 broken teeth in his mouth faded away, the skeleton doppelganger, who had been bitten by him on the purple gold skeleton on his left thigh, but was not damaged at all, raised its right fist high. At this moment, it fiercely smashed down. It smashed down from top to bottom, right on the back of the 9 netherworld demon crocodile. Oh! Chapter 4700. Boom! Bang! Ruthless! Ruthless, ruthless, ruthless. On this side, the Black Fog Avatar and the Skeleton Avatar of the 3 Blood Sea Avatars respectively fought against the Scarlet Unicorn and the 9U Demon Alligator. 2 vast and boundless seas of blood enveloped their bodies, preventing them from escaping. As the battle unfolded, earth-shattering booms continued without end, and wild roars and ruthless howls filled the sky. From the beginning of the battle, the Scarlet Unicorn and the 9U Demon Alligator were at a disadvantage. They were almost abused, and most of the time, they could only parry. Occasionally, they would take the opportunity to launch a counterattack. At the same time, on the left side of the other side, the 3rd sea of blood shot out, and now, it had crossed more than 20 billion miles of the void and arrived in front of the 9-headed blood dragon and the azure sky rock. The figure standing in the center of this sea of blood was the flesh body of the 3 blood sea avatars, which was the violent ape of starry sky. Although the boundless sea of blood under his feet was vast and boundless, and the violent ape stood in it, it only occupied a small corner of the sea of blood, but it looked extremely powerful and eye-catching. At this time, the size of the violent ape had already reached 60 million miles. Although the cultivation aura emitted from its body was the same as before, still at the third-rank Desolate Venerable, its real battle strength had reached the level of a fourth-rank Desolate Venerable. Previously, without the support of the boundless chi and blood in its huge body, the violent ape could already easily beat up the nine-headed blood dragon and the azure sky rock. Now, as its size had increased to 60 million miles, the boundless chi and blood in its huge body had increased its battle strength by another level. Now that the violent ape had become even more powerful, it was obvious that the nine-headed blood dragon and the azure sky rock would be even more powerful if they fought against it. It was even more miserable. The two of them were well aware of this, but there was nothing they could do. The scarlet unicorn and the 9U demon alligator were being brutally beaten up. If the two of them, the main characters, were to escape, they would definitely not have a good ending. This was the rhythm of forcing ducks to a perch. When they thought of the violent beating that they would suffer next, the nine-headed blood dragon and the azure sky rock were on the verge of collapse. However, this also ignited the anger in their hearts. In any case, no matter how powerful the violent ape was, it was impossible for it to truly kill them in a battle of this level. It was even impossible for it to heavily injure them. At most, it would only be light injuries. Since that was the case, it was impossible to avoid a beating. So, he might as well throw caution to the wind. No matter what, he had to grit his teeth and persevere, striving to teach the other party a lesson as well. Swish! Walala, when this thought flashed through the minds of the nine-headed blood dragon and the azure sky great rock, and their expressions gradually became ferocious, the violent ape stepped on the vast and boundless sea of blood and finally came close. An extremely sharp air-breaking sound rang out, accompanied by endless splashing sounds. The sea of blood swept over, covering the sky and the earth. It replaced the sky and the surrounding void of the universe. In an instant, it enveloped the nine-headed blood dragon and the cyan sky rock and pulled them into nothingness. In the sea of blood. It was also at this instant that the azure sky rock and the nine-headed blood WYRM finally launched an attack at the same time. Even though they knew that the effect wasn't great, they still exerted all their strength and executed their strongest bloodline divine abilities and secret techniques with the sole intention of making the other party suffer a little. Swish, swish, swish. An extremely sharp air-breaking sound rang out. A large amount of green mist gushed out from the huge body of the azure sky great rock in an instant. The wind and clouds swirled, covering a corner of the void in the sea of blood. The momentum was astonishing. At this moment, the soul-stirring sound of flapping wings filled the sky and the earth. This corner of the sea of blood that was covered by the green mist trembled slightly. Countless arrows in the shape of feathers appeared from the sea of blood. They were like green goose feathers drifting in the air, covering the sky and the sun. All of them shot toward the violent ape. Roar! At the same time, the nine-headed blood dragon's figure flashed and arrived beside the violent ape. It raised its head and roared. Its figure, which was only about 10,000 feet tall, stood on its hind legs and waved its hand. Although its body wasn't big, in fact, there was a huge phantom of a blood dragon behind the nine-headed blood dragon's head. It was as big as the azure sky great rock, hundreds of millions of feet tall. As the nine-headed blood dragon punched out, the huge phantom of the blood dragon behind its head also opened its 9 heads at the same time and bit toward the violent ape. He had used this move before. At that time, the violent ape was only about 10 feet tall. A single scale on the 9 heads of the phantom of the blood dragon was countless times bigger than him. The 9 huge heads came at the same time. In the blink of an eye, one of them swallowed the violent ape at that time. But now, it was obviously impossible for such a scene to happen again because the size of the violent ape had already reached 60 million miles while the bloody flood dragon's shadow behind the 9-headed bloody flood dragon's head was only about 10 million miles. It was much smaller than before. Didn't you use the same move before? You didn't get the slightest advantage. Instead, you suffered a lot. Seeing these two guys attacking angrily, but still using the same old moves, Bao Yuan grinned. The voice of divine sense immediately came out. It seems that you guys are clearly not satisfied with being beaten up. Your skin is still itching, so you guys are taking the initiative to ask for a beating. If that's the case, I will do as you wish. Boom! Boom! Before the voice of the divine sense fell, a cold light flashed in the eyes of the violent ape. With a step, The terrifying figure of 60 million miles had already arrived in front of the nine-headed blood dragon and the azure sky great rock. With a wave of his hand, the cyan feather phantoms that originally filled this corner of the sea of blood completely collapsed and disappeared without a trace. Then, the violent ape attacked with lightning speed. 2 consecutive punches landed on the chests of the azure sky great rock and the nine-headed blood dragon. Puff! Puff! After the shocking bang, 2 muffled puffs sounded. The azure sky great rock and the nine-headed blood dragon couldn't resist at all. They opened their mouths and spat out a blood arrow. Their bodies flew backward at an extremely fast speed, looking extremely miserable. Point. After sending these 2 guys flying with one blow, the violent ape didn't stop there, as if it felt that it wasn't enough. With a grin, the violent ape's incomparably huge body took a big step forward and chased after the azure sky great rock and the nine-headed blood dragon. The vast sea of blood under its feet was like a shadow, tightly enveloping the flying great rock and the nine-headed blood dragon. This was clearly going to continue. However, this was not the end of the torment. In the blink of an eye, the 3 seas of blood and the 3 places of battle were all displayed. Chapter 4701. Boom! Rumble. In the void, the roar was so loud that it reverberated through hundreds of billions of miles of the vast void. 3 blood seas spread out in the void. In each of the blood seas, there was an earth-shattering battle going on. On this side, the Black Fog Avatar and the Skeleton Avatar of the 3 Blood Seas avatars were fighting against the Bloody Unicorn and the 9 Netherworld Demon Crocodile respectively. 2 boundlessly vast seas of blood enveloped their figures, causing them to be unable to escape in the slightest. Moreover, as the battle unfolded, rumbling that shook the heavens and the earth continued without end, and there were even violent roars and howls that covered the heavens and the earth. From the beginning of the battle, the Bloody Unicorn and the 9 Netherworld Demon Crocodile were at a disadvantage. They were almost being abused. Most of the time, they could only parry, and occasionally, they would take the opportunity to counterattack. As for the left side of the void on the other side, the situation was obviously worse. The violent ape avatar of the 3 Blood Seas avatars was fighting against the 9-headed blood dragon and the azure sky rock alone. These 2 guys were only stage 1 Baron Supremes, but the violent ape avatar of the starry sky realm had a terrifying battle strength that was comparable to a stage 4 Baron Supremacy. The battle was absolutely one-sided. The 9-headed blood dragon and the azure sky rock did not have the slightest ability to parry. In a short period of time, they were beaten to the point that they lost their temper. At this very moment, the 2 of them had completely collapsed. If they had known that the violent ape was so fierce, and that there was no time limit for the Baron Supremacy's cultivation that was raised by some kind of secret technique, and that it even mastered the Blood Sea Demon Supremacy's Blood Sea secret technique, moreover, it had already comprehended it. If it could condense 3 Blood Seas avatars that had the same battle strength as the original body, they would not have come to provoke it at this time. Now the result was such. Not only did they fail to provoke it, but they were also beaten up by the enemy. Just thinking about it made them want to cry. What was even more depressing was that they were obviously not the violent ape's opponent. Now that they had understood this point, they wanted to leave, but they could not. If that was really the case, the Bloody Unicorn and the 9 Netherworld Demon Crocodile, who were unintentionally involved in this matter, would definitely break their bones. This was simply asking for it. The 9-headed blood dragon and the azure sky rock were so regretful that their intestines turned green. Roar! Bang bang! Right at this moment, the violent ape let out a furious roar, and its figure chased over swiftly. It brought along the vast sea of blood beneath its feet as it traversed a distance of a few 100 million kilometers, and it arrived before Chen Shi in the blink of an eye. With 2 simple punches, the 9-headed blood dragon and the azure sky rock couldn't dodge at all. They were all smashed into pieces. Pooh! Pooh! After a loud bang, the 2 old men opened their mouths at almost the same time and spat out a mouthful of blood. Their figures even took advantage of the momentum to fly backwards and finally moved hundreds of millions of miles away. When this scene entered into the eyes of the experts, space beasts, and survivors of the primordial era that were watching the battle from afar, their eyes instantly turned crimson red while their breathing became rapid once more. Many people even had pained expressions on their faces as they heaved long sighs. What a waste of God's gift! What a waste of God's gift! This is the precious blood of the desolate sovereign. Now that it's spraying out in the void like it doesn't care about its life, we can't get close to it. A rare opportunity and fortune is right in front of us, but we can only watch helplessly. It's simply too torturous. From the looks of it, the master of the magic hall is clearly going to suppress all the heroes today. This is good too, with his status. I'm sure he won't bother to clean up the battlefield and collect that little bit of blood. I only hope that this battle will end as soon as possible. Just a little bit more will be lost. Pft. Pft. Hearing these words, especially hearing that the blood they spat out was actually called broken blood by a certain fellow, the nine-headed blood dragon and the azure sky rock were enraged. As they flew backwards, they actually opened their mouths and spat out another mouthful of blood. At this moment, they were truly on the verge of going berserk. It was one thing to be brutally abused by the violent ape, but in the surrounding void, there was actually a group of fellows who were inferior to ants commenting on them. As the patriarch of a clan, the supreme existence of the primordial era, they couldn't bear it any longer. Unfortunately, even if they went berserk, it was obvious that they couldn't resolve the sad and embarrassing situation in front of them. The only way was to first persuade the bloody unicorn and the 9U demon crocodile, who were unintentionally involved, to leave. Only when the two of them left first would they dare to escape. As these thoughts flashed through their minds, the nine-headed blood dragon and the azure sky rock subconsciously turned their heads and exchanged a look. Their faces turned blue. They really couldn't say such words. It was too king embarrassing. Roar. Rumble. Just as they were hesitating, the violent ape in front of them had already raised its head and roared. It waved its giant fist that was even larger than a meteor and flew over again. The nine-headed blood dragon and the azure sky rock were so scared that their faces turned green. They didn't dare to delay any longer. They turned their heads almost at the same time and looked at the other two seas of blood. The voice of divine sense was instantly transmitted. Two lords, why don't we stop here today? If we really want to talk about it. It was just a misunderstanding before. Yes. We're all desolate supremes. There's no need to fight and kill. If there's any misunderstanding, we can find a time to sit down together and talk about it. We accidentally dragged the two lords into this. We're all terrified. The two lords seem to have said before that you were just passing by this place. I think you must have something important to do. Why don't you leave us alone so as not to delay your business? That would be a real sin. When these words were heard, the nine-headed blood dragon and the azure sky rock's faces turned green. It was too embarrassing. It was obvious that they couldn't beat the other party, so they took the initiative to admit defeat and prepared to settle the matter peacefully. The ants in the distance were probably looking down on them. Today, they were actually looked down upon by a group of ants. It was simply maddening. The key was that they could have turned around and escaped. Although the violent ape was fierce, its combat power was only comparable to a fourth-rank desolate supremacy. Although they couldn't beat it, they couldn't stop the nine-headed blood dragon and the azure sky rock if they wanted to leave. Although that would be embarrassing, it was better than the current situation where they had to put down their pride and take the initiative to show weakness in order to escape. They had to beg the scarlet unicorn and the 9U demon alligator to leave first before they could escape. In short, today's matter was simply disheartening. They had never been so humiliated. Fortunately, their painstaking efforts finally paid off. In the other two blood seas far away in the void, after hearing their words, the eyes of the blood chelan and the 9U demon crocodile lit up instantly. Then they each raised their heads and roared wildly. Their voices were heard. Roar! Screech! If the two of you didn't mention it, I would have forgotten about it. The reason why I'm traveling with the demon alligator is because there's a very important matter that needs to be dealt with. It's extremely urgent. Chapter 4702. Roar! Screech! Violent ape, let's end the battle here today. Wait for me and fellow blood unicorn to finish our business, then I will come to find you for a battle. It's really a pity. I just got excited and didn't have enough fun. Now I have to stop the battle. It's really disappointing. In the other two blood seas far away in the void, the bloody unicorn and the 9-hell demon alligator were down the slope. After hearing the words of the 9-headed blood dragon and the azure rock, their eyes lit up. Then they each raised their heads and roared, sending out the voice of divine sense. When these words were said, the bloody unicorn and the 9-hell demon alligator's old faces were also hot. But they knew that if they didn't seize this opportunity to withdraw and leave this place, they would definitely lose even more face later. In order to save as much face as possible, they could only brace themselves and be shameless for once. With this thought flashing through their minds, the two of them turned their heads and exchanged a look. Without any hesitation, they immediately pushed the strength in their bodies to the limit. They gritted their teeth and endured the blow. Finally, in the time it took for them to leave the vast area where they were respectively, They rushed out of the sea of blood. Hiss! Gotcha! After escaping, the bloody unicorn and the 9-hell demon alligator did not hesitate at all. They immediately rushed to the sky. With a wave of their claws, they directly tore a crack in the void and shot out. After all, these two old fellows were rank 3 desolate venerables. If they wanted to escape, unless Yi Xian used the fallen sky bow and other powerful magical powers, or used the 9-colored flame sea to trap them, it was impossible to stop them. However, he didn't want to expose these trump cards now. At least, he couldn't expose them so easily. Therefore, although he was unwilling, he could only let them leave. In the blink of an eye, the bloody unicorn and the 9-hell demon alligator had already rushed to the crack in the void that they tore with their claws. Their hearts immediately calmed down. Their figures suddenly paused, and the two old men immediately turned their heads, sweeping their gazes over Yi Xian's 3 blood sea avatars. Cold light flashed in their eyes, and before they left, they did not forget to say a few harsh words to save some face. Bao Yuan, take good care of yourself. You must not die prematurely. The battle between you and I today has yet to come to an end. Once we're done with proper business, I'll definitely come for your little life. When the time comes, I'll definitely skin you alive, break your bones, refine your soul. If you're scared, it's best that you find a place to hide. Otherwise, the day I return will be the day you die. Roar! Screech! After that, the two old guys raised their heads and let out a final roar and howl. Without hesitation, they turned around and rushed into the void crack in front of them, disappearing. Seeing the two of them leave, the 9-headed blood dragon and the cyan sky rock were so excited that they almost burst into tears on the spot. If he had known that these two lords were so easy to talk to, why would he have waited until now? I should have spoken up a long time ago. I spat out so much blood for nothing. Just as he was feeling emotional, the mocking voices of the Black Fog Avatar and the Skeleton Avatar could be heard from afar. Is this the so-called Supreme Primordial Master? It's really an eye-opener. He doesn't have any other abilities, but he's the best at bragging. Oh right, his skin is so thick that no one can match him. The two of you spoke so confidently just now, and actually took the initiative to send those two old fellows away. From the looks of it, could it be that you plan to fight 2 against 3 and have a good bloody battle with my 3 great clones? Come. Since you guys are in such a good mood, I will naturally fulfill your wish. Don't worry, none of the 3 great clones will leave. I'll stay and accompany you to the end. Swish! Swish! As these mocking voices sounded, the 2 vast seas of blood in the distant void instantly shot over. Above the sea of blood, the Black Mist clone and the Skeleton clone stood proudly. Their gigantic figures, which were 60 million kilometers tall, were so majestic that one could only look up at them with bated breath. In the blink of an eye, with a sharp sound of breaking through the air, the 2 vast seas of blood had already arrived in front of them. The 3 seas of blood instantly merged into one. At this moment, the Violent Ape Avatar, the Black Fog Avatar, and the Skeleton Avatar were like 3 legs of a tripod, each occupying one side, standing in the triangle of the Blood Sea, surrounding the 9-headed blood dragon and the azure sky rock in the middle. They were glaring at each other covetously, their eyes bursting with a fierce light, as if they could attack at any moment. The brazen manner of his attack. The 9-headed blood dragon and the azure sky great rock were so scared that their faces turned pale, but they felt their faces burning. Even a fool could tell that they were being mocked. The dignified ancestor of a clan, a supreme existence who had stepped into the desolate venerable realm, had suffered such humiliation in public today. The key was that they were powerless to refute, and they didn't even dare to refute. Today, they had completely lost their face. However, no matter how angry they were, they didn't dare to answer Yi Xian's words. Previously, just the Violent Ape clone alone had already tortured them to the point where they wanted to die. Now, there were 2 more clones with the same cultivation base as the Black Fog clone and the Skeleton clone. If the 3 of them really joined forces, it was not entirely impossible for the other party to force them to stay. Even if they couldn't do it, it wouldn't be difficult for them to strike quickly and seriously injure them before they successfully escaped. Thinking of this, the 9-headed blood dragon and the azure sky great rock's hearts trembled. After exchanging a look, they raised their heads and let out a fierce roar. Screech! Screech! At this moment, the 2 of them activated the bloodline power in their bodies to the extreme and used their strongest escape techniques at all costs. In the blink of an eye, the 9-headed blood dragon and the azure sky great rock's incomparably huge bodies turned into 2 streaks of light, one red and one green. They tore through the void and shot away, disappearing. You two are really decisive. You just ran away. Seeing the two of them disappear, even Yi Xian was quite surprised. He originally thought that the two of them would say a few harsh words, but he didn't expect them to be so straightforward. He was caught off guard and ran away in an instant. And this scene fell into the eyes of the experts, the ferocious beasts of the starry sky and the survivors of the primordial era, who were watching the battle from afar. Everyone was stunned for a moment. The entire void was dead silent for a moment. Then, overwhelming exclamations came like a tide. It swept over and there was an uproar. What? They all ran away? Isn't the change too fast? The four powerful supreme masters of the primordial era actually ran away in the blink of an eye. They all abandoned the battle and ran away. If this news spread, countless eyeballs would fall out of this void. The point is that before they left, the two powerful existences actually said such words. It's simply too surprising. It overturns the transcendent image of the supreme masters of the primordial era in our hearts. It's over. At the beginning of this battle, who would have thought that in the end, it would have such an ending? Chapter 4703. Walala. A crashing sound came like a tide, covering the sky and earth. As the black mist avatar and the skeleton avatar collapsed in an instant, they turned into a rain of blood and merged into the sea of blood under their feet. Then, the boundless sea of blood shrank in the blink of an eye, turning into a weak light that shot into the forehead of the violent ape. Turning his head to look at the powerhouses from all sides, the star beasts and the survivors of the remote antiquity glanced around. The figure of the violent ape quickly shrank, and in the blink of an eye, it had returned to its original height of about 10 meters. But the aura of cultivation emitted from its body was still that of a third-order desolate venerable. At this time, the exclamations in the surrounding void were still resounding, but Yi Xian completely ignored them. His figure flickered, and a faint sound of breaking through the air rang out. His figure turned into a light, and blasted away at a speed far faster than lightning. In the blink of an eye, he had already reached the end of the sky, rushing into the rising sun forbidden land and disappearing. In an instant, this void battlefield, which was originally hundreds of billions of miles, was completely empty, and not a single soul could be seen. But in the void, there were still some blood beads floating, big and small. These were left behind by the four desolate venerables, the bloody unicorn, the 9 hell demon crocodile, the 9-headed blood dragon and the cyan sky rock. If it was a majestic blood mist formed by the explosion of a supreme desolate venerable's body, Yi Xian naturally wouldn't waste it. But it was just blood spurted out from a serious injury, so he didn't care about it at all. If he really took it away, it would be too degrading, and the illustrious reputation of the master of the magic hall would be affected because of this. However, what he looked down upon was a rare treasure for the experts, ferocious beasts, and survivors of the primordial era who were watching the battle from afar. At this moment, with Yi Xian's departure, the surrounding void suddenly became quiet, and then countless figures rushed out, rushing to the vast space where the battle took place to collect the blood of the desolate venerables. The vast void that had just quieted down instantly became lively again, and some people even started fighting because of this. However, Yi Xian couldn't see all of this, and he wasn't interested in it at all. At this time, he had already returned to the rising sun forbidden land and returned to the magic hall. This battle didn't last long. Although the subordinates of the rising forbidden land were alarmed, because the Green Ox, Zhao Dong, Qian Nan, Sun Shi, Li Bei, and the 6 blood dragon were all in seclusion, from the beginning to the end. Not a single figure rushed out of the forbidden land of rising sun. Now, after returning to the demon palace, Yi Xian didn't hesitate and immediately broke through. This time, it could be said that he had fought to his heart's content. The gains from the previous breakthrough had already been completely integrated into his divine soul and body, and the opportunity for another breakthrough had also arrived because of this rumble. With that thought, Yi Xian waved his hand and took out the Shenong cauldron. It floated in the air behind the giant mountain where the magic hall was located. Then, with a flash of his body, he stepped into the mouth of the cauldron that was filled with 9-colored fog. After entering the cauldron, he sat cross-legged above the volcano in the central region of the cauldron. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Soon, a large number of weak sounds of breaking through the air could be heard. Rays of light shot out from Yi Xian's body and floated in front of him. They were all cultivation resources that he had taken out from the undying world in his body to use for this breakthrough, including the all-evil origin liquid, the 9-color divine medicine, and so on. There was even 1,000 feet of chaos medicine. Everything was ready. Yi Xian immediately activated the power of the Shunnong Cauldron's domain, compressing all the cultivation resources into the size of a nascent fist. With a wave of his hand, this nascent fist-sized bead was swallowed into Yi Xian's stomach and quickly melted. Walala! Rumble! The energy bead melted as soon as it entered Yi Xian's mouth. The sound of chains rattling could be heard from within his body, accompanied by the sound of thunder. All the resources that he had swallowed earlier turned into a majestic energy river. Everything that followed was a walk in the park. He activated the energy river that had just formed in his body and continuously circulated it in his meridians until it was completely refined. As the great river of energy completely disappeared and merged with his soul and body, Yi Xian only accumulated enough energy to launch a single attack before the shackles were broken. The anticipated system prompt quickly sounded in his mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host for breaking through the realm of the ancient Dongshu technique. Current realm: Primordial Era Great Figure Level 3. Ding! Congratulations to the host for breaking through the realm of the physical body. Current realm: Primordial Era Great Figure Level 3. Primordial Era Great Figure Level 3 was already the peak of the initial stage. With one more breakthrough, Yi Xian would be able to enter the middle stage of the Great Figure level. But in fact, he already had the battle power of a middle stage Primordial Era Supreme and was not far from the late stage. Previously, Yi Xian's original body was at the second stage of the Primordial Era Supreme. After activating the bloodline of the ancient demon ape in his body, he could instantly reach the third stage of the Primordial Era Supreme. After using the 9 demon ape transformations and reaching the 9th transformation, his battle power would immediately soar to the third stage of the Primordial Era Supreme. If the majestic energy and blood of his physical body were included, his true battle power would be comparable to a 4th stage Desolate Master. But now, as he broke through again, after activating the bloodline of the ancient demon ape in Yi Xian's body, he would instantly have the strength of a 4th stage Primordial Era Supreme. Once he used the bloodline of the 9 demon ape and entered the 9th transformation, his peak battle power would be comparable to a 4th stage Universe Supreme. If he was in the form of a 60 million miles long fleshly body, the tremendous power of blood essence would add another level to his actual combat prowess. At that time, the strongest battle strength that he could display would reach an unprecedented rank 5 Desolate Supremacy level. He would only be one stage away from the peak of the middle stage Desolate Master. But in fact, Yi Xian still had the Blood Sea Secret Technique. Once he activated the Blood Sea Secret Technique's clone power, he would be able to condense 3 Blood Sea clones in an instant. All of them possessed terrifying battle strength that was comparable to a rank 5 Desolate Supremacy. In the situation of 3 against 1, even a 6th-stage Desolate Master would not be his match. It could be said that even if they were to engage in a normal battle, below the late-stage Desolate Master, the current Yi Xian was already invincible. And if he used the Fallen Sky Bow, even a 7th-stage Desolate Master and the late-stage Desolate Master would be killed by one arrow if he was caught off guard. And he would die. My strongest battle power has reached the 5th stage Primordial Era Supreme, and I can have at most 3 Blood Sea bodies of the same battle power. After the breakthrough, Yi Xian suddenly opened his eyes. Deep in his eyes, there was a flash of light. Chapter 4704. The breakthrough this time actually took 3 months? After calming down, Yi Xian calculated the time with his fingers, and his expression changed slightly. He felt that the breakthrough this time was extremely smooth, and he did not encounter any special obstacles at all. The entire process of seclusion was like this. In this case, under such circumstances, he would be able to smoothly break through within 10 days at most. This matter in fact, the last time he broke through to the 2nd level of the Desolate Era, it only took Yi Xian 7 days. But now, it took him an entire 3 months to break through from the 2nd level of the Desolate Era to the 3rd level. That was 90 days, which was more than 10 times the time. This really caught him off guard. However, after thinking about it for a while, he quickly came to a realization. It seemed that starting from the peak of the early stage of the Almighty, the time taken for each subsequent breakthrough would probably increase as well. This made him feel a little helpless, but after thinking about it carefully, it was also reasonable. From now on, he could be considered to be close to the middle stage of the Desolate Era. He was not far from officially stepping into the Desolate Venerable realm. Just think about the other Desolate Venerable experts. Which one of them did not experience endless years of accumulation and precipitation before they had the opportunity to break through in one day? Just like that. For example, although the two old fellows, the nine-headed blood dragon and the azure sky rock, had lived from the end of the desolate era to the present world, their cultivation strength had only finally broken through now and stepped into the desolate venerable realm in one fell swoop. Of course, a large part of the reason was that they had been seriously injured in the great battle that had collapsed the desolate era. Their recovery was too slow and took a long time. However, just based on this matter from a side view, it could also prove how difficult it was to break through to the desolate venerable realm. Although Xian had the chaos medicine, after entering the middle stage of the desolate era, it was impossible for every small breakthrough to be completed in just a few days. That was simply unreasonable. This matter. In fact, if he could still make breakthroughs like this after he entered the middle stage of the primordial era, it would only take him 3 to 4 months to break through each minor stage. If word got out, even the void tortoise would be envious. Thinking with this in mind, he no longer felt conflicted. Although every small breakthrough in the future would take a long time, he was now a rank 3 almighty. With only 6 small breakthroughs, he could consume a level 29 sovereign treasure pill and enter the desolate realm. It was only 6 small stages. Even if each breakthrough took a long time, it wouldn't be a big deal. Swish! After adjusting his mood, Yi Xian immediately stood up and stepped out of the mouth of the farmer god cauldron that was shrouded in 9-colored fog. Then he waved his hand. Sway with a faint whistling sound, the Shengnong treasured cauldron instantly turned into a dazzling ray of light and shot into his glabella, disappearing. Rumble! In an instant, Yi Xian's figure darted out and disappeared into the magic hall in the blink of an eye. He sat on the black throne at the top of the hall. With a thought, an earth-shattering rumble sounded. The huge magic hall, which originally stood at the peak of the tallest mountain in the inner part of the star, rose rapidly. In the blink of an eye, it passed through the star's atmosphere and hung above it. Such a movement naturally alarmed all the subordinates of the magic hall in the rising star Forbidden Land. Excluding the higher-ups who were in seclusion, the rest of the undying emperors and above all rushed over. To Yi Xian's surprise, 6-headed blood dragon actually came out of seclusion. His original cultivation level was only at rank 1 Universe Supreme, but now, after more than 3 months of seclusion, his cultivation level had risen by 2 small stages. Now, he was already at the pinnacle of rank 3 Universe Supreme. Except, because of him, the 6 Universe Knights under the Magic Hall also came out of seclusion. At this moment, they arrived and stood behind 6-headed blood dragon. The 6 of them were Zhao Dong, Qian Nan, Sun Shi, Li Bei, and the 2 Universe Knights from the captive army who had just broken through 3 months ago. They were from the Blood Dragon clan and the Green Rock clan respectively. 3 months ago, these 6 old men had only been Universe Knights at level 1. However, now that they had not seen each other for 3 months, they, like 6-headed blood dragon, had successfully broken through to rank 3 Universe Knight. Regardless of whether it was the 6 of them or the 6-headed blood flood dragon with the strongest cultivation, the reason why they were able to reap such benefits in such a short period of 3 months was obviously related to the chaos medicine that Yi Xian had given them. One had to know that even supreme beings of the primordial era like 9-headed blood dragon and Cyan Sky Rock didn't even have a violet medicine, let alone a chaos medicine. It could be said that 6-headed blood dragon and the others were only at the level of Universe Knight and Universe Supreme. Under the premise of swallowing violet medicine and chaos medicine, it was natural for them to break through consecutively in such a short period of time. Other than 6-headed blood dragon and Zhao Dong, at this moment, after hearing the movement here, the higher-ups of the 4 armies of the Magic Hall who were above the level of Emperor rushed over. Almost all of them were present. Green Ox and Yu Ling Long from the Beast Army, Long Xiao, Gong Jun, Black Wind Tiger, Howling Moon Mastiff, and a few other undying emperors from the Rising Star Forbidden Land, a total of more than 40 undying emperors. Remnant among the civil army, there were the Sangji tribe, and more than 20 undying emperors from the Rising Star Forbidden Land. Also there were the members of the nomadic army, including 3-clawed dragon and Long Shan Tang, and more than 60 undying emperors. Also finally, there were more than 200 undying emperors in the captive army formed by Blood Dragon, Green Rock, and Battle Lion. A total of more than 400 undying emperors were all gathered here. Greetings, Demon Master. When everyone was present, they all clasped their fists and greeted Yi Xian respectfully. Originally when Zhao Dong and the others saw Yi Xian, they all knelt down on one knee and bowed deeply. However, they were all stopped by Yi Xian. They were all family, so there was no need to bend their knees so easily. Clasping their fists was enough. This made him even more popular. Now that the 4 armies of the Magic Hall were all united, they were like an iron bucket that couldn't be broken through. Since you've already come out of seclusion, I'm sure you all know about the previous battle. Yi Xian nodded and transmitted his voice. Now that the Magic Hall is so powerful, there shouldn't be anyone who dares to provoke us in this space fragment. But this is just a facade. Don't forget that as the end of the primeval age draws closer and closer, more powerful figures and supreme masters of the primeval age who have been dormant will show up like bamboo shoots after the rain. Even though the Magic Hall is powerful, it's still unknown whether it can survive the apocalypse. Soon, I'll lead you all into the Hongmeng space. However, before that, you all have to raise your strength as much as possible. Other than that, it's time to clean up the various powers in this space fragment. After all, before we enter the Hongmeng space, the Magic Hall needs to be strengthened as much as possible. At this point, Yi Xian's eyes flashed with a bright light, and his tone faintly revealed a sinister coldness. Pass down the order. All the cool members of the upper echelons of all the powers in this great desolate world fragment, whether they are from the 3 main planes of the starry sky, or the fierce beasts and survivors that originally lived here. In 3 months, all of them will come to see me. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version website. Chapter 4705. At this moment, Yi Xian, as the master of the Magic Hall, gave out the first order to all the powers in this fragment of space. He requested for the higher-ups of these powers, whether they were from the 3 space masters, or the beasts and survivors that originally lived here, to meet him in 3 months. After the order was given, all the generals at the front all clasped their fists and bowed. After which, they dispersed and headed to different races and powers, giving out the order to the Magic Hall. This fragment of the untainted universe was too vast. There were space beasts, desolation survivors, and the major races and forces from the 3 main planes of the universe. Each of them took up a position and gathered into a group. 6-headed Blood Dragon Elder, Green Rock Elder, Zhao Dong, Qian Nan, Sun Shi, Li Bei, and the other Universe Knights and Universe Supremes led Green Ox, Yu Ling Long, Dragon Centipede, Gong Jun, Black Wind Tiger, Howling Moon Mastiff, and Su Sheng. The other emperors of the Forbidden Land. The surviving members of the Sangji tribe in the army of remnant survivors and the over 20 immortal emperors from the Rising Sun Forbidden Land were also present. There were also the 3-clawed dragon and Long Shan Tang from the nomadic army, 60-plus emperors. And finally, there were the 200-plus emperors of Blood Dragon, Green Rock and Battle Lion from the captive army. This meant that there were over 400 emperors under Demon Palace. They were split into 7 small teams, each in charge of one direction, rushing out of Rising Sun Forbidden Land and into the distance. These 400-plus emperors and above were now the messengers of the Master of the Magic Hall. They would spread out and pass down the order given by Yi Xian to every power. Without a doubt, as the Demon Master's order was spread out, the hearts of the people in this fragment of the Eldritch world would be shaken. In the previous battle, the Master of the Magic Hall fought the 4 desolate knights alone. They were all beings that had lived for a very long time, yet none of them were his match. They all fled. This kind of heaven-defying combat strength had already shocked the world. In the entire untainted world fragment void, no force dared to stand out and openly oppose the demonic hall at this moment. However, the Master of the Magic Hall had always been domineering. Now that he had given such an order, he wanted all the upper echelons of the powers to gather in the Forbidden Land of the Shushing Forbidden Land to meet the Demon Master. No one knew exactly what they were up to, and it was precisely because of this that they felt uneasy and fearful. In a corner of the fragment of space. This was originally a forbidden land for ferocious beasts. However, it had long fallen and become the base camp of the greedy wolf race from the 3rd Space Master of the 2nd Universe. The greedy wolf race was one of the top 10 races of the 2nd Universe. However, they were ranked behind the Blood Dragon, Green Rock and Battle Lion races. The strongest in the base camp of the greedy wolf race was a core ancestor, who had just awoken not long ago. He was a level 3 Universe Master of the universe. Other than that, under this greedy wolf universe lord, there were 4 knights and over 20 emperors. They were extremely powerful. Unfortunately, to the current demon hole, which was at the peak of its power, this bit of strength was nothing in its eyes. It was nothing. Of the over 20 emperors in the base camp of the greedy wolf race, Lang Ganglai was one of them. He had long since submitted to Yi Xian. Back then, he had been released by Yi Xian and returned to his race. Over the years, he had been valued by his race. Along with the awakening of a few core ancestors and the nurturing of them, Lang Ganglai was able to reach his current level of emperor. If Yi Xian saw that he was already an emperor, he would be shocked. Even though his training speed couldn't compare to Yi Xian's, it was still shocking enough. In truth, other than Lang Ganglai, the others released by Yi Xian back then, like the young leader of the Yingji race Ji Jinghong, the young leader of the barbarian bull race Ri Tian, the young leader of the golden eagle race Jin Hao Yen, the little princess of the colored python race Medusa, etc. Now, they were all in the void of the primordial world fragment. They were all resting in their own camps. Their levels of power were all extraordinary. If they weren't late emperor level, then they were emperor level. However, they'd almost completely forgotten about Yi Xian. After all, many years had passed, and the situation in the universe had changed greatly. The three main planes of the starry skies had already become the backlands that no one cared about. Xiao. In the distant space outside the greedy wolf race camp, 10,000-meter-wide strongholds transformed into beams of light and shot over. The surface of these 10 strongholds were all painted pitch black. On top of them was a blood-colored palace. It was exactly the same as the magic hall on the majestic peak of Yi Xian's cave world. This palace represented the magic hall. Seeing the logo painted on the hull of the ship, anyone could instantly understand who had come. Now, in this primordial world fragment void, the name of the demon hall was already known to everyone, and it was like thunder in one's ears. These 10 strongholds were one of the teams from the magic hall that had rushed out of the forbidden land of Rising Sun a few days ago. The 7 universe knights and above under the magic hall each led their own teams and were in charge of one direction. This direction was led by Zhao Dong, and he led many more teams. Now, within the team heading towards the greedy wolf race, there were 2 emperor-level undyings in charge of the magic hall. They were the 3-clawed dragon and Yu Ling Long. Xiao. Xiao. At this time, as they got closer, these 10,000-meter-wide strongholds suddenly stopped 10 million miles away from the greedy wolf race camp. Following which, a sharp-piercing sound resounded. One figure after another rushed out from the 10 fortresses. Leading them were the 3-clawed dragon and Yu Ling Long. Other than them, there were a few emperor-level undyings and emperor-level undyings. At this time, the upper echelons of the greedy wolf race had already rushed out of the starfield and stood at the edge of the space. Their eyes were filled with tension and vigilance as they looked over. The one leading them was Greedy Wolf Universe Master, and behind him were 4 Greedy Wolf Knights. Behind them were 20 emperor-level undyings of the greedy wolf race, and Lang Ganglai was one of them. Where is the leader of the greedy wolf race? The 3-clawed dragon raised his chin and glanced at the upper echelons of the greedy wolf race 10 million miles away. His gaze finally landed on Greed Wolf, who was leading the group. He nodded and waved his hand, sending a ray of light over. This is an imperial decree. Lord Demon Master has issued an order for all the core members of the various races and forces, including those who are titled emperors and above, whether they are from the 3 main star planes of the universe, the beasts that originally lived here, or the survivors. In 3 months, they are to come and pay their respects. See. Now the order has been issued for 6 days, and there are less than 3 months left, so please prepare early. Otherwise, if you are absent, you will be infuriated by Lord Demon Master. You will bear the consequences. Please remember the domain name of the book. Mobile version of the book. Chapter 4706. Hong. Hong long long. The rumbling of the battleship resounded. After giving out Yi Xian's order, the 3-clawed flood dragon and Yu Ling Long immediately turned around and led the group of emperors and emperors back to their respective strongholds. Very quickly, the 10 strongholds changed directions and rumbled away. The greedy wolf race wasn't the only race they were responsible for informing. There were other races waiting to be notified, so they didn't have time to waste here. The breakthrough came and left decisively, displaying unparalleled dominance. This scene made the Universe Lord-level ancestor of the greedy wolf race so angry that his body started to tremble. 2 puny emperors had actually led a group of emperors and emperors to show off in front of him. They had been so arrogant from the start, and after giving out the order, they didn't even exchange a few pleasantries before turning around and leaving. This really made him feel stifled and resentful. After all, he was a universe master, a core ancestor of the greedy wolf race, and he had never encountered such a situation before. In fact, even the 4 universe knights of the greedy wolf race behind him were so angry that they started to tremble. Before them, even emperors were like ants. But now, these 2 ants were leading a group of fellows that weren't even ants, and they were acting so arrogantly in front of them. This was simply too arrogant. However, even though the three-clawed flood dragon and Yu Ling Long weren't very strong, they were the emissaries of the master of the magic hall. Now that the magic hall was like the sun in the sky in this space fragment, it wasn't something the greedy wolf race could afford to provoke. That would definitely be a calamity. The blood dragon, green rock, and battle lion races were all examples of what would happen to them. The 4 universe knights from the greedy wolf race exchanged glances and spoke one after another, filled with resentment and unwillingness to accept the outcome. This demon hallmaster is so ambitious. He just destroyed the headquarters of the blood flood dragon, the azure rock, and the battle lion clans. Now, he's summoning us and saying that we'll have an audience. Does he think that he's the supreme overlord of this void? That does seem to be the case. Don't forget that he fought 4 primordial supremes by himself, and the 4 of them fled miserably one after another. Among them, not only does it include the first generation of the Blood Dragon clan, the first generation of the Blood Dragon clan, and the first generation of the Cyan Sky Great Pung from the Green Rock clan, there are even 2 desolate supremacies from the 9 Netherworld Demon Crocodile and the Blood Unicorn. They are definitely invincible. Although this desolate world fragment is vast, I'm afraid we won't be able to find an existence that can contend against them. Even if our greedy wolf clan's first-generation ancestor wakes up from his deep slumber and descends here, he won't be able to do anything. He is an opponent. But are we, the greedy wolf clan, supposed to be controlled by the magic hall? I really can't accept this. There's no need to rush this matter. This time, the mysterious demon hallmaster has issued this edict to all the races and factions in this fragment of the great desolate world to present themselves before him. Not only us, but also the various clans and forces from the 3 main planes of the starry sky, including the ferocious beasts and the survivors of the primordial era who originally lived here. In the past, we have fought many times with these ferocious beasts and the survivors of the primordial era. They are not masters who will bow their heads casually. If there are no accidents, most of the ferocious beasts in this desolate world fragment will be able to form an alliance. It's the same for the survivors of the primordial era. And the only way for us, the various clans and forces from the 3 main planes of the starry sky, to not be enslaved by the magic hall is to band together and seek shelter. The 2 camps of the human clan have always been on good terms with the headquarters of the Myriad Luo Federation. Now that the headquarters of these 3 forces are in the same star field, they will most likely become the representatives of the 3rd universe and gather the rogue cultivators of the other 3rd universes to form an alliance of forces. As for the slave races in the 1st universe, their base camps are not far from each other. They are guarding each other. In the face of this crisis, they will most likely form an alliance. Except for the demon kin, who will not participate, I guess the other races in the 1st universe will all participate. The rest of the clans will join the new alliance. They have been enslaved by the Tianji clan for countless years. They are more aware of the humiliation and pain of being enslaved than any other clan. This time, they will definitely not bow their heads so easily. As for our greedy wolf clan, we can raise our arms and shout loudly, gathering the headquarters of the clans of the 2nd universe and forming an alliance with the top 10 clans of the 2nd universe as the leader. In my opinion, let's call it the Star Alliance. Among the top 10 clans of the 2nd universe, although the headquarters of the Blood Dragon clan, the Green Rock clan, and the Battle Lion clan have fallen, there are still a large number of clansmen in their ancestral land. Now that the first-generation ancestors of the Blood Dragon clan and the Green Rock clan have arrived first, the follow-up will definitely move the entire clan. Although the 9-headed Blood Dragon clan and the Cyan Sky Rock clan are not opponents of the mysterious master of the Magic Hall, they are still primordial sovereigns after all. The previous battle will definitely be unreconciled and damage the reputation of the desolate sovereigns. As long as we and the other clans of the 2nd universe unite and ask for orders from the 9-headed Blood Dragon clan and the Cyan Sky Rock clan, and let these 2 desolate sovereigns take charge of the overall situation, they only need to release a message. Of course, the Dark Turtle clan, who has always been at odds with us, probably has no hope. Their current Milky Way Star Master, Yi Xian, is very close. Even the headquarters of the clan is in a star field occupied by Yi Xian's victorious legion. The edge, including the demon dwellers, are the same. So if there are no accidents, the Dark Turtle clan of